the topic that set off this election campaign and the entire basis of the Liberal strategy.
Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to welcome the Prime Minister to his first official question period. This is where democracy lives, and this is where we provide rigorous scrutiny on every word he says and every dollar he spends on behalf of Canadians. Now, let's talk about those words and dollars. During the election campaign, it was elbows up as he put retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. Then secretly, he dropped those tariffs to effectively zero. But he didn't stop there. He told Canadians that the government would collect $20 billion in revenue from those tariffs and use it to cost his platform. Now that those tariffs are going to bring in $0, two quick questions. Why wasn't he honest with Canadians during the election? And how's he going to make up the shortfall? Is he going to borrow it, print it, or tax it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, may I first thank my constituents from Nepean for giving me the honour of being here. And could you also indulge me to say how great it is to see you in the Speaker's chair, and I trust that you're operating under the period of grace that will not be accorded to me, appropriately, as the Leader of the Opposition just said. Mr. Speaker, our tariffs have maximum impact on the United States, minimum impact on Canada, and we are dedicating all the revenues from those tariffs to supporting the workers and businesses affected by the unjustified American actions.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, he didn't take long to pick up old Liberal habits of not being able to answer questions. But since the election, Canadians have been inundated with grand rhetoric and pretty speeches from this Liberal Party, but they are still suffering under all those policies. Household debt up at record levels, number of people who can't pay their mortgages increasing, food bank use continuing to rise. Now TD Bank is forecasting a recession with hundreds of thousands of lost jobs. The PM said undoing the damage of the last 10 years would require great speed, but he's not going to table a budget for 6 months. If he's the man with the plan and the guy you hire in a crisis, why won't he table a budget before he goes on summer vacation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the member of the opposition is very busy, didn't have a chance to study closely the 100-day plan of the former member from Ottawa, Carleton, which did not include a budget. Our plan includes legislating. Our plan includes legislating for one Canadian economy and nation-building projects immediately to grow this economy, and we expect the support from all in this House.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
They must be really afraid to come clean with Canadians if they're going to punt it off into the fall. But, Mr. Speaker, with the throne speech yesterday, Liberals have effectively admitted that it was their policies that caused the suffering for Canadians. Their reckless borrowing and massive deficits caused the inflation. The carbon tax drove up prices and drove away investment. And their anti-development bills chased jobs out of Canada. Now, the Prime Minister is claiming that somehow the Liberals have changed. Well, he has a chance to prove it to Canadians. If he's serious, will he tell Canadians that pipelines are part of his values by repealing Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines bill?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Canada's new government is acting immediately to grow this economy. I just made my maiden speech in this House. Canada's new government, Mr. Speaker, is acting immediately to grow this economy, one Canadian economy out of 13, nation-building projects, one project office, working with the provinces to cooperate. We expect the support from the members opposite.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister campaigned on the slogan, the man with a plan, but the problem is that he's refusing to tell Canadians what that plan is. A budget would have been a plan. The Liberals are going to go over a year without tabling a budget. That's never happened since the 60s. But what we do know is that this Prime Minister is determined to spend even more than Justin Trudeau, and he's refusing to tell Canadians how he intends to spend their money. What is the Prime Minister trying to hide about this Liberal government's finances? Mr. Speaker, the new Canadian government has a plan. It has a daring plan, an ambitious plan to bring together the Canadian economy, have one economy instead of 13, and in order to create new projects to build this great nation. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, what I'm seeing in front of me is the same ministers, the same government that's been in place for 10 years. We know the result of 10 years of this Liberal government. And what we have now, yes, is a new Prime Minister, but a Prime Minister with no plan. He said he had one, but he doesn't want to table a budget because he knows perfectly well that his plan is disastrous and that our public finances are in a terrible state. Will this Prime Minister commit to tabling a budget before the summer? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government will act immediately to cut taxes on the middle class by hundreds of dollars for the average family. We will also reduce or remove GST on new home builds. We have a plan, and we will be bringing in that plan immediately. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago, we were having an election campaign. And during the election campaign, we heard a lot about the threats of Donald Trump. Now, this government brought in retaliatory tariffs against Donald Trump, but then they discreetly took away those tariffs during the campaign. But they didn't say anything about it because they wanted to make sure that Canadians would stay scared. But now we have a $20 billion budget hole, and that's on top of a budget that already had a heavy deficit. Could we finally get a new budget so that we can understand what's going on with our finances? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member across the way must have been referring to the Conservative platform when he talked about the $20 billion deficit. Well, that's all right. Well, Mr. Speaker, we have counter tariffs against the Americans, and they will have maximum impact on the United States while having minimum impact in Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the topic that set off this election campaign and the entire basis of the Liberal strategy was the trade and tariff and even the annexation crisis that we've been seeing with Donald Trump. But despite this, yesterday's throne speech, read by a foreign monarch, did not mention trade. It did not mention tariffs. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering how it is that this terrible crisis that got our Prime Minister elected, how did it just get forgotten in the throne speech? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, for those who were there at the throne speech, for those who were there, we heard about transformation in the throne speech, the transformation of the global trade system, which is a crisis for Canada, a security crisis for Canada. We have a daring plan in order to respond to this crisis. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, the Prime Minister will perhaps agree that some things are clearer when you read them than when you hear them. Now, the King's speech was incredibly centralizing, so centralizing that I think even Justin Trudeau must have felt embarrassed. We heard about a single economy, one Canadian economy, without asking anyone what they thought of that, even though the National Assembly of Quebec unanimously denounced that notion. It seems that for the Prime Minister, Canada is just a country where the provinces are like the branches of a bank that is headquartered in Toronto, the Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are in the middle of an economic crisis. This is a time for unity. Yes, this crisis was created by the Americans, Mr. Speaker. This is a time for unity. This is why my ministers and I, or rather, the premiers and I will meet, the premiers of Quebec and the premiers of all the provinces will meet this weekend in Saskatoon. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, it's a little bit like a military staff meeting where the general will give orders and expect everyone else to obey. Now, on another subject, let's talk about the climate crisis. That's an issue too, you know. It's causing all sorts of problems. It's causing damage for people. It's causing economic damage as well. We believe that we need to take strong action against the climate crisis. But yesterday, in the throne speech, we heard nothing about the climate. Instead, measures are being projected that will actually harm the climate and the environment. Does the Prime Minister recognize the existence of climate change? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, yes, of course, the climate crisis exists. And it's a major challenge facing our nation. And that's why Canada needs to become an energy superpower, both in traditional and green energy. And that's why in Alberta at the G7 next month, we will be holding a discussion on forest fires.
Lakeland.
Yesterday, the PM said Canadians shouldn't focus on pipelines. We'll tell that straight to the hundreds of thousands of workers who lost their jobs when these Liberals killed pipelines, LNG exports to allies, and capped Canadian oil and gas. Last year, 98% of Canadian crude went to the U.S., Canada's biggest customer and competitor, due to these Liberals. But in April, the PM said he won't repeal their No New Pipelines, Never Build Anything unlawful Bill C-69 and ignores premiers and businesses. When will he repeal Bill C-69?
The right Minister for Natural
Resources.
Resources.
To rise in the House for the first time. I wish to thank the people of Markham Thornhill for their trust. I'm also thinking of my family. I'm also thinking of my family who have supported me from day one, and my parents who I wish were still with us. It's time to get many projects built here in Canada. We will cut red tape, fast-track projects, and approve them within 2 years. We will create jobs for Canadians and build the strongest economy in the G7.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
Alone, these Liberals killed 16 major energy projects and $176 billion in options to make Canada affordable, safe, self-reliant, and united. And half these ministers, they're the same. These Liberals must kill C-69, but they can't get their story straight. 2 weeks ago, the Culture Minister said Canada doesn't need more pipelines. Last week, the Energy Minister talked a good game, but just like right now, won't commit to concrete action. How can Canadians believe anything they say? Will they repeal Bill C-69, yes or no?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
The Prime Minister has been clear. Yes, we will support new pipelines if there is consensus in Canada for them. With American tariffs threatening our economy and threatening our sovereignty, we must protect our energy security. There is no question energy is Canada's power. It will help us build the strongest economy in the G7, guide the world in the right direction, and help us be strong at the negotiating table. We will win this trade war. We will make Canada an energy superpower.
The honourable member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Over 9 years, the Liberals' anti-energy laws have weakened our country to the benefit of the United States.
That's right.
Canadian oil and gas piped to the United States provides jobs and revenues for Americans, but not for Canadians. But get this, it's at a discount. Canada's energy potential has been stalled by anti-energy laws from the Liberal government for close to a decade. Will the Prime Minister scrap the job-killing and economy-killing energy production cap?
Yes.
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, while my Conservative colleagues are interested in playing politics, I'm interested in getting things built, including pipelines where there is consensus. We will make Canada an energy superpower in both conventional and clean energy by cutting red tape, fast-tracking projects, and approving them within 2 years. This means creating new jobs and growing the economy. We can make Canada strong and protect ourselves from American tariffs if we work together with Indigenous partners, industry, and workers, but also
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Time is up.
Even the BC NDP have removed their decarbonization policies for LNG export facilities. This is not politics. Even Canada's Parliamentary Budget Officer forecasts a $20.5 billion reduction in GDP and potential job loss of 54,000 full-time jobs under this energy production cap.
Right.
Canada's loss is America's gain.
That's right.
Yes.
Again, to the Prime Minister, will the Prime Minister scrap the Canadian job-killing and Canadian economy-killing energy production cap, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the constituents of Toronto Danforth for giving me this opportunity to stand up for Canada and to build a strong Canada. To the member opposite's question, I want to be clear. If Canada wants to be an energy superpower, the Prime Minister has stated it. It's going to be low cost, low risk, and low carbon. We're going to get projects built right across our country while making sure that we protect the environment.
The honourable member for Terra Nova, the Peninsula.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to rise here representing the hard-working people of Newfoundland and Labrador for the very first time. While my province of Newfoundland and Labrador has the highest unemployment rate in the country at nearly 10%, the industrial carbon tax is compromising our competitive edge and shifting our jobs abroad. Canada's energy, mining and forestry workers are pleading to have the industrial carbon tax removed. My question is, will this Prime Minister fully repeal the industrial carbon tax to create jobs at a time we need it the most?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, making sure that polluters pay is a central part of moving forward and being competitive as an energy superpower. When we look at other countries around the world, they have border carbon adjustments in place. They are looking to Canada to make sure that the energy that we provide is low risk, low cost, and low carbon.
The honourable member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals claim they want to make Canada an energy superpower, but they forget it's their record over the last decade that has decimated our energy sector and kept our resources in the ground. Their oil and gas production cap will kill tens of thousands of jobs and cost our economy $20 billion. Their industrial carbon tax will cost Canadian businesses and consumers and make Canada less affordable and less competitive. Their legislation, Bill C-69, is blocking energy infrastructure and making us more dependent on the United States. The solution is easy. Will the Prime Minister repeal Liberals' costly anti-energy laws?
The Honourable Minister of Industry and Canadian Economic Development.
Thank you. I would like to thank first and foremost the constituents from Hunsik-Cartierville. Merci à tous les citoyens d'Hunsik-Cartierville. know that we are in a trade war that has been launched by the U.S. And we know that hardworking Canadians are feeling the grunt of this trade war, particularly in the manufacturing sector, particularly in the auto, steel, and aluminum sectors. And we continue to fight for them. That's why we will make sure that we invest in them, that we work on making sure that we attract the investments across the world while making sure that we grow the fastest economy of the G7.
L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, throughout the campaign, the Prime Minister kept saying that he was open to new energy projects. But he never clearly said that he would repeal Bill C-69, a liberal anti-development bill which would prevent Quebec LNG from being restarted. We need this in order to be less dependent on the Americans. Will the Prime Minister listen to Quebec's rural regions and repeal C-69? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Well, I'm looking forward to working with my colleague at a time when we're facing the American trade war. I'm looking forward to protecting jobs both in Quebec and everywhere in Canada, especially in the aluminum sector, for example. There is aluminum in my colleague's riding. We will attract new investment. We will create jobs here and throughout the country, and we will have the strongest growth level in the G7. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, there is a Léger poll that shows that 87% of Quebecers feel completely detached from the monarchy. And that's why the National Assembly of Quebec unanimously adopted a motion asking for all of Quebec's links with the monarchy to be abolished. In Quebec, we are Democrats, not monarchists. But on the other hand, the Liberals, well, the first thing they did after the election was to invite the King of England to parade around at a cost to Quebecers, a cost of millions of dollars. Do the Liberals realize that the very first thing they did in office proves that they are completely disconnected from Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Identity and Canadian Culture. I'd like to thank my constituents who have enabled me to be standing up here for a third consecutive mandate. And I'd also like to remind my colleagues from the Bloc that it's always the UK Crown that reads the speech, that there's nothing different there. But this time the King came to read the speech, which is an honor for many Canadians and also many Quebecers. And I'd also like to remind my colleagues from the Bloc that we are a sovereign country. Sovereignty is a concept that they should understand. Isn't that so?
We're seeing two different narratives on housing. What? That's what I thought.
I would like to apologize to the member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Please go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quebecers did not vote for this, Mr. Speaker. Quebecers were hoping we'd get a serious government which would table a budget to support the Quebec economy at a time when we're facing Donald Trump. But today, Quebecers are seeing that the Liberals' priority is not the budget because we don't have a budget, and they don't care about supporting our economy. They're not doing anything for that. What is actually their priority is to put on a spectacle with the King of England. You know, whenever the Bloc Québécois talks about the monarchy, the Liberals say that we're ignoring the really important topics. Well, then why aren't they prioritizing important topics like the budget instead of wasting millions of dollars on royal pomp and circumstance? Can I get an explanation for this? The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start by thanking my constituents for electing me to a fourth mandate. And I intend to fulfill my mandate with conviction, humility, and passion, Mr. Speaker. And yes, we are focusing on important topics. My colleague must be asleep at the switch. The first thing we're going to do is to reduce taxes for 22 million Canadians. We should all be celebrating here today, Mr. Speaker. 22 million Canadians will see a middle-class tax cut. That was our promise, and that's what we're going to do. Together, we will build a stronger Canada.
Mr. Speaker, we're seeing two very different narratives narratives on housing, one from the campaign and a very different one from the minister. The new housing minister, the former mayor from Vancouver, who let housing prices go up 179% in just 8 years, is saying something very different. The minister answered a resounding no when he was asked if home prices should come down from their record highs. If he's adamant that prices shouldn't go down, how much does he think that they should go up?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure and Minister responsible for Pacific Economic Development Canada.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Et je suis honoré.
It's an honor for me to be here in the House.
Vancouver, Fraser, South Burnaby, for giving me the opportunity to represent them here. On the issue of affordability and affordable housing, well, first, I'm very proud to be part of a government that's committed to cutting taxes from day one here in the House. I'm also looking forward to pursuing the most ambitious affordable housing plan in the history of Canada, delivering a GST cut to first-time home buyers and ensuring we bring the development costs down.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
The minister ought to know that the housing market is already in chaos. Sellers can't sell and buyers can't buy. It's proving out. Only 310 houses were sold across the entire GTA. That's a staggering 89% below 10-year average. Lower supply, higher prices spells more trouble for Canadians. So instead of building homes and bringing the cost down, he's actually building more bureaucracy. So we know that housing prices went up 179% when he was in charge of housing in Vancouver. How much higher are they going to get when he's in charge of housing for the entire country?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure and Minister responsible for Pacific Economic Development Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the member, it's not about reducing the value of an individual's home or senior's home. The member may wish to force seniors to sell their homes for less. We're going to focus on building more affordable housing and delivering a cut to the GST to first-time home buyers.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, the sale of new homes in the GTA just hit a 7th straight month of record-setting lows. Only 310 new homes were sold in the GTA in April. That's a 72% drop over last year and an 89% drop in the 10-year average, with condo sales plummeting 94%. Wow. The report warns that there will be a massive housing shortage in 2 years. Prices are too high for buyers and they're too low for sellers. So can the Prime Minister tell us what he plans to do to help the buyers that cannot afford to buy and the sellers that cannot afford to sell?
L'honorable ministre des Finances et du Revenu national.
It's good to be back, and in fact, the Conservatives have not changed, Mr. Speaker. They should listen more. My colleague was very clear about what we're doing. We're eliminating GST for first-time home buyers, Mr. Speaker, in the country, for houses up to $1 million. We should all celebrate, Mr. Speaker, and we expect the Conservative to support the Ways and Means motion we have put, Mr. Speaker, because this is how we can help Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Well, Mr. Speaker, tax relief is certainly welcome, and it's frankly long overdue from this government. But the meager tax cuts that they're talking about will save families $70 a month. We're dealing with families that are looking at $5,000 a month mortgages or more. Equifax is reporting that the mortgage delinquencies in Ontario are at the highest level ever recorded. They're up 70%, Mr. Speaker. This is not a coincidence. It's certainly not a surprise. So instead of building a third federal housing bureaucracy, why don't we just get more homes built?
Good L'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
Speaker, in one end, it's encouraging that we hear the Conservative will support our motion, but it's concerning to hear a member, Mr. Speaker, to really talk down a measure that will help 22 million Canadians in this country, Mr. Speaker. This is shocking. This is up to $840 for a family with 2 incomes, Mr. Speaker. The people in my riding and his riding are welcoming this measure, and we hope the Conservative will support us. This is how you support Canadians.
L'honorable député de
The Honourable Member for Montmorency Charlevoix.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Tout au long de ma campagne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All throughout my campaign, I met hundreds of young people in Montmorency Charlevoix, my riding. They were completely discouraged by the exorbitant cost of housing. After years of Liberal governments, mortgage payments and down payments have doubled. According to the Canadian Real Estate Association, last year alone, the average home price in Quebec increased by 10%. And yet, on his first day in office, the Minister of Housing told Canadians that home prices were fine. That is so out of touch with reality. Mr. Speaker, how can the minister look young Canadians in the eye and tell them that home prices are fine? The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, if my colleague had been listening today, he would have heard that there is good news for Canadians. We will cut GST for first-time home buyers up to $1 million, Mr. Speaker. That can lead to savings of $50,000, Mr. Speaker. That is an incredible, exceptional measure. It will help young families. It will help young Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We made a promise, and we are keeping it.
Shore, St. Margaret's.
Mr. Speaker, last month voters in my riding of beautiful South Shore, St. Margaret's, voted for change. A change to address the cost of living and a change to address the cost of living which has eroded Canada's quality of life. They voted for a change that puts more money in their pockets, and they voted for change that builds more affordable Canada. As we build the strongest economy in the G7, we need to ensure that we leave no Canadians behind. Mr. Speaker, my question is, could the Minister of Finance and National Revenue please share with this House how the government
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker, what a great question, Mr. Speaker. I think the Conservatives should follow the lead, Mr. Speaker. I want to congratulate my colleague for election and for the hard work that she's putting on behalf of the people of South Shore. St. Margaret's, Mr. Speaker, as she mentioned last month, Canadians voted for a government that has a plan to build the best economy in the G7, and that's what we're delivering, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're delivering, and we're going to address the cost of living in this country. That's why one of the very first announcements of this government, Mr. Speaker, was to cut tax for 22 million Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we should all celebrate.
The honourable member for Haldimand, Norfolk.
Liberal policies like Bill C-5 have led to a crime wave across Canada. Violent crime is up 50%. Gun violence is up 116%. Just yesterday, a drive-by shooting shook our small rural community of Cayuga. This crime wave is no accident. It is a direct result of the Liberal policies like C-5 that has ended mandatory jail time for serious gun offences and drug crimes. Will the Prime Minister end this crime wave by repealing Trudeau's Bill C-5?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me just take a moment to thank the people of Scarborough-Gilbert-Bruce Park for my fourth consecutive mandate. To my friend opposite, my heart goes out to those who are impacted by the violence in her community just yesterday. I want to assure her, and I want to assure all Canadians, that we will address issues of serious violent offenders seriously. We will make sure that we tighten up bail reform, and we will ensure that our government will always be there to protect Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
The honourable member for Haldimand, Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, a serious issue is the will of Canadians to live in peace, which they once did. Now they live in fear because of Liberal soft-on-crime policies. Liberal policies like Bill C-5 and Bill C-75 put repeat violent offenders back on the streets, contributing to the suffering of communities across Canada. Premiers, police, legal experts, civil liberties advocates all demand change. So I ask the question one more time. Will the Prime Minister restore safe streets and repeal Bill C-5 and Bill C-75, yes or no?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Speaker, on April the 28th, Canadians gave us a mandate to ensure that our streets are safe. And since that time, we've been working together with law enforcement to work towards safer communities across Canada. I want to just outline some of the highlights from the Chief of Police for the City of Toronto, who indicated that auto thefts, for example, have decreased by 39%, home invasions down by 42%, homicides down by 67%, and shootings down by 46%. We have a lot more work to do, Mr. Speaker, and we will work together with law enforcement to ensure the safety and security of all Canadians. Our government will always be there to protect.
The honourable member for Edmonton Gateway.
Mr. Speaker, families across Canada feel helpless because these Liberals have done nothing to stop violent crime rising across the country. They stick with their ideological soft-on-crime policies, and that is why extortion gangs are targeting Canadian businesses and their families. In fact, just this month, we've seen more shootings, arson, and even a murder potentially linked to extortion. Yet Canada still has no mandatory minimum penalties for extortion. So will the Prime Minister work with Conservatives to bring in the same legislation that I brought in last Parliament to bring in tougher penalties for extortion?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You heard it in the throne speech yesterday. It is a top priority of this new government. We are partnering with police services across this country to fight organized crime. We'll make it tougher for violent criminals to get bail. We'll impose stricter sentences for repeat offenders. We are serious. We're going to get to work, and we're going to fight crime.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, since 2016, nearly 50,000 Canadians have died from the opioid crisis. Over 80% of accidental opioid deaths involve fentanyl. It takes just 2 milligrams of fentanyl to kill someone. Mass fentanyl production is mass murder. But Liberal laws let the monsters who kill our people walk free. Conservatives are proposing to give mandatory life sentences for anyone involved in the trafficking, production, and distribution of over 40 milligrams of fentanyl. Will the Prime Minister crack down on fentanyl production and give life sentences for drug kingpins committing mass murder?
Hear, hear. Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, let me just first welcome my friend opposite to the House. Fentanyl has torn every community across Canada and North America, Mr. Speaker. It's something that everyone in this House is impacted by. We're accelerating our work to crack down and dismantle the fentanyl trade and organized crime that profit from it. That's why we listed 7 cartels as terrorist entities under the Criminal Code. I'm working so closely with Kevin Brasseau, Canada's fentanyl czar, at home and abroad, to put laser-sharp focus on dismantling fentanyl rings. We will work together in order to address this issue. Our government will always be there.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, soft on crime, Liberal Bills C5 and C75 have unleashed crime waves in Brampton and across our country. Violent crime up 50%, auto theft up 50%, extortion up 400%. The out-of-touch public safety minister said during the campaign that there was nothing wrong with the bail system. Repeat offenders should be in jail, not out on bail. Does the Prime Minister agree with his minister, or does he stand with frontline officers like Peel Police to bring in bail reforms?
Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We stand with all our frontline officers, with Peel Regional Police and all police agencies across this country. We're partnering with their services, and we're going to fight organized crime. We'll make it tougher for violent criminals to get bail, impose stricter sentences for repeat violent offenders. And the Chief has reported, the Chief of Police for Toronto, that auto thefts have decreased by nearly 39%, home evasions down 42%, homicides down 67%, and shootings down 46%. And we'll continue to be tough on crime.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands.
Before taking office, the Prime Minister helped establish multi-billion-dollar investment funds that were placed in offshore tax havens. Now he's shielding those investments from public scrutiny with a blind trust that hides but doesn't remove potential conflicts of interest. Now, Canadians are lined up at food banks in record numbers. They can't pay their rent, but they are paying their taxes, and they want to know if the Prime Minister paid taxes on his investments. So can the Prime Minister, who I welcome here today, confirm that none of the investments that he placed in the blind trust were previously held in offshore tax havens?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, as you know, the Prime Minister has followed all the rules even before they were required. He'll continue complying with all the rules. Opposition members like to distract Canadians with these hypotheticals and conjured scenarios. The fact is we have a Prime Minister, a new government, hard at work at creating opportunity for Canadians, the strongest economy in the G7, and reducing taxes. The opposition don't like that so much, so they dig dirt on day one. Shame on them, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue our work.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Canadians don't want an explanation in how to bend over backwards to fit through ethical loopholes. They want to be reassured that after a decade of serial ethical law breaking, that they can have confidence that the Prime Minister is going above just the basic minimum standard. So the Prime Minister, again, who I welcome to the chamber, can he stand up and just assure Canadians that none of the funds that he had previously were held in offshore tax havens? And can he tell Canadians what those investments were in when he sat at his first cabinet meeting?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, Canada has among the most stringent ethics guidelines in the world. The Prime Minister has complied with those ethics guidelines and surpassed the requirements contained in those ethics guidelines. What the Prime Minister is busy doing is not what this member is busy doing. What the Prime Minister is busy doing is creating opportunity for Canada, standing up in a trade war against the United States, reducing our taxes, building new homes, and creating the strongest economy in the G7. That's what we're up to.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic, L'Érable, Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, how can we know for sure that the Prime Minister is not just making more opportunities for himself? Why is the Liberal Prime Minister so reluctant to disclose to Canadians the full extent of his personal wealth? Why so many secrets? We know that just before becoming Prime Minister, he set up, for his company, Brookfield, 2 multi-billion-dollar funds in notorious known tax havens so that the company wouldn't have to pay taxes in Canada. Can the Prime Minister confirm here and now that he has no assets and no financial interests in offshore tax havens? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, it didn't take long for the Conservative question period machine to run out of material. What we're doing is creating jobs, creating a strong economy, standing strong against the United States. The Prime Minister exceeds all the requirements of the Code of Ethics, which is the most demanding of all of its kind in the world. The Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, they love to dig for dirt. Meanwhile, on this side of the House, we are creating opportunities for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Mégantic, L'Érable, Lotbinière. Well, it didn't take the Liberal government long to start doing things the exact same way that the last Liberal government did. Here's the truth. The Liberal Prime Minister seems to be taking his sweet time covering up his conflicts of interests before opening his books to Canadians. One of his first decisions as Prime Minister was to transfer assets to a blind trust. And he claims that by magic, overnight, he will forget about all of his financial assets, as if the only ones who don't know are Canadians. Will the Prime Minister come clean and disclose all of his financial assets, as well as the conflicts of interest held in his trust? Yes or no? We need an answer now. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, Canadians can be assured that this Parliament and our institutions are governed by the most demanding ethics code in the whole world. The Prime Minister met and even surpassed all of the Code of Ethics' requirements. If the Conservatives want to carry on like this, digging for dirt, I think electors will be disgusted. Canadian voters want us to work for them. They don't want us here slinging mud at each other. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, for too long, trade barriers have stifled the development of one Canadian economy. Our economic sovereignty is currently under threat. It is thus more important now than ever before, to promote free trade within our borders. Can the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs and One Canadian Economy inform this House of the action our government is taking in order to protect our economic sovereignty and to build one Canadian economy? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board, U.S.-Canada Trade, Intergovernmental Affairs, and One Canadian Economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague, the member for Terrebonne, for her excellent question. We recently campaigned on a commitment to build one Canadian economy, not 13 economies. By Canada Day, Mr. Speaker, we will table a bill which seeks to eliminate all federal barriers to internal trade. We also commit to working with provinces and territories in order to fast-track projects that are in the national interest. Mr. Speaker, that's how we intend to build the strongest economy in the G7.
Canada is in an economic crisis without any plan because the Liberals shut this place down for half the year to avoid accountability. And now the Prime Minister says no budget before fall. With record-high food bank usage, a rise in the number of those using those food banks that are fully employed, a rise in mortgage delinquencies, TD Bank now also predicts that over 100,000 Canadian jobs will be lost due to a looming recession. Given all of this information, how is it even possible the Liberals won't table a budget this spring?
L'honorable ministre des Finances et du Revenu national.
I welcome the question from my colleague, Mr. Speaker. We're being very clear that there will be a budget in early fall of this year, Mr. Speaker. But in the meantime, why we should celebrate, and we just see now that the Conservatives are going to support our motion, Mr. Speaker. Now this is a good thing, Mr. Speaker. Now Canadians will see that in this House of Commons, we need to do things for them. The first thing that we presented, that we promised and we're delivering, is a tax cut for the middle class, Mr. Speaker. 22 million Canadians will having a tax cut, Mr. Speaker. This is what we've been elected for. We're going to fight for Canadians. Every day, Mr. Speaker, is a good day to fight for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East. The Prime Minister sloganeered on a plan, yet refuses to tell anyone what that plan is. He's overseeing the longest period without a budget since the 1960s outside of COVID. Uncertainty about spending and their debt that they're going to accumulate scares away investors, small businesses, and Canadians during a cost of living crisis. We know that this Prime Minister is going to spend more than Justin Trudeau. Why won't they be clear with Canadians and let them know how much more inflation and interest rates are going to go up because of all their spending?
Hear, hear. L'honorable ministre
The Honourable Minister of Industry
et ministre responsable de Développement économique Canada.
and Economic Development Canada for Quebec's regions.
Justified tariffs by the U.S. against Canadians are making Canadians' lives much more unaffordable. That's why we're cutting taxes. As the Minister of Finance just mentioned, this new government is cutting taxes on the middle class, making sure also that we're cutting the carbon tax and cutting the GST on first-time homebuyers. We will create the strongest and fastest-growing economy of the G7. This is the utmost priority of our government, and we will deliver. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket Aurora.
The Prime Minister claimed being the man with a plan. Very well. Where is it? After 14 years in finance, I have learned that if you don't know your numbers, you're out. We know the Prime Minister is committed to spending more than Justin Trudeau, but he won't even tell Canadians how much.
TD reported that Canada is nearing a 2-quarter recession with up to 100,000 job losses this fall. So I have one simple question. With the economic storm clouds moving in, how is it possible not to have a budget this spring?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
Speaker, I have one simple answer. We have a plan, and it's a plan in action, Mr. Speaker. I welcome this member to the House of Commons. But the plan, Mr. Speaker, is simple. We're going to cut tax for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, the leader of the Conservative just said outside the House that he's going to support our plan. So that, Mr. Speaker, is a step forward. Not only we're going to do that, we're going to remove GST for first-time home buyers for a house up to $1 million. And, Mr. Speaker, we're going to remove the consumer carbon price from law, Mr. Speaker. This is a plan. This is delivering for Canadians. This is building a better economy for all.
The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour for me to rise in this House as a representative for a region that forms part of Canada's north, beautiful Labrador. We must never take our sovereignty and security in the Arctic for granted. As foreign threats to the region's increase and the impacts of climate change intensify, it is imperative that Canada work in close partnership with Indigenous and Northern communities. Can the Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs inform this House on the government strategy for the region? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today with a deep sense of responsibility, gratitude, and humility. I stand here as a proud Anishinaabe, Innu, and Métis woman representing Churchill, Keewatin-Niukiski riding. Ensuring a Canada that is strong and free and defending the Arctic and the people living there is a top priority for this new government. We will strengthen the presence of the Canadian Armed Forces, detect and deter early warnings with radar coverage, and invest in the necessary housing and infrastructure. And we'll do this all by working with Indigenous and Northern partners every step of the way.
Honourable member for Central Newfoundland.
Mr. Speaker, in yesterday's throne speech, the Prime Minister reaffirmed his commitment to persecute the fishing and aquaculture industries with Liberal policy to close down 30% of fishing grounds by 2030. The 30 by 30 Marine Protected Areas agenda was developed by the United Nations in conjunction with foreign activists, and this government signed it. So how can the Minister of Fisheries support shutting down the productivity of the fishing industry and the aquaculture industry that means so much to coastal communities throughout Canada, given the impact that it'll have on our very own province?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the people of St. John's East for continuing to put their trust in me, and I also want to congratulate my colleague from across the aisle. This government continues to understand the cultural and the economic importance of the fisheries. And I can tell you that I am very humbled and proud to be responsible for this file. And I will also assure the people of Canada and certainly my colleague across the aisle that the fisheries remains an important ministry in the government, and I will do all that I can to ensure that harvesters, industry, and communities are protected.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's unemployment rate has surged to 6.9%, the highest in 8 years outside the pandemic. Alarmingly, youth unemployment is more than double that. And now, the OECD is warning that Trump's trade war will cost Canada even more jobs this year. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are worried about their futures. What immediate steps will this government take to bring the jobless rate down and protect Canadian workers who will be hurt by Donald Trump's tariffs?
Okay, the honourable member, the honourable minister for Jobs and Families and minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to rise and represent Thunder Bay Superior North for a 4th term in this House of Commons. Government is very focused on protecting workers and in making sure that youth and indeed workers of all ages have the skills and abilities to thrive as our economy transitions. I will work closely with my partners, indeed members across this House, to make sure that all Canadians have an opportunity to thrive as we see economic change.
And that completes our very first question period of the 45th Parliament. I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Rob Lance, Premier of Prince Edward Island. No points of order, so we'll go to
oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Regina Capel.
What a mess. Yesterday was a gong show at the bottom of a dumpster fire, wrapped up in a cluster. The finance minister resigns, the prime minister hides all day and then has to beg his MPs not to fire him. But the worst news, buried underneath it all, was a devastating gut punch to Canadian taxpayers. A $62 billion deficit smashing through the already insane $40 billion guardrail. Canada is a serious G7 NATO partner staring down the threat of 25% tariffs. We deserve a strong leader with a new mandate. Why not let Canadians decide by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by thanking the Opposition House Leader for his heartfelt congratulations on my new role. I want to tell him, Mr. Speaker, and all Canadians, that our government is very proud of the fall economic statement that we made public yesterday. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement speaks to growth in the Canadian economy. It speaks to supporting Canadians with serious affordability challenges. It speaks to a declining debt to GDP ratio, the best in the G7. And Mr. Speaker, we haven't finished supporting Canadians, something the Conservatives aren't interested in doing.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Well, I'd like to congratulate the new finance minister for being the 4th finance minister in a 24-hour period. But it's the same old talking points. What they did yesterday was smash through that $40 billion guardrail. What does that mean? It now means that Canadians have to pay back all that money with interest, and 43 cents of every dollar you earn now has to go to pay the tax burden. More money to bankers and bondholders. In fact, the government's now spending more on the interest on that debt than on health care. But the Prime Minister doesn't care. He doesn't worry about where the money comes from. He's never had to worry about that. So why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect their government to be focused on their economic concerns. They expect their government to be focused on the real threat that 25% tariffs across the board would mean to the Canadian economy. That's the work that our government's doing. I can report, Mr. Speaker, I had an encouraging preliminary conversation with the Foreign Affairs Minister yesterday, with the Border Czar, with Mr. Homan. We look forward to working with the incoming administration on border security, something that the fall economic statement generously supported yesterday. This is the work Canadians expect us to be focused on, and we're looking forward to doing that work.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
They were so proud of that fall budget that they tabled it in the House and then ran and hid for the rest of the day. But let's recap. The Prime Minister announced $250 checks and then had to cancel them. He announced a 2-month GST tax trick that businesses say they won't implement, and the Prime Minister now says is optional. A broken immigration system, Parliament seized with a $400 million corruption scandal, all the while 2 million food bank visits, doubled housing costs, record high consumer debt, the dollar below 70 cents, and the Prime Minister raising prices by quadrupling the carbon tax. Yes. Again, why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as I said a moment ago, we're proud of the fiscal and economic record of this government. This is a record, Mr. Speaker, of supporting Canadians through the pandemic. This is a record of investing in entrepreneurship and innovation. This is a record in providing, for example, Canadians with $10 a day childcare, historic investments to speak to not only affordability issues, but growing the economy in a sustainable way. Mr. Speaker, this is work we're proud to continue to do for Canadians, and we find it unfortunate that it's the opposition that's trying to ground this House of Commons into chaos.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg. Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of Liberal MPs and of Canadians, but he continues to cling to power. He and his top economic advisor, Mark Carney, forced the former Finance Minister to blow past her already out-of-control $40 billion fiscal guardrail, which was already out of control, as I said, and forced her to run a whopping $62 billion deficit. This Prime Minister has added more to the national debt than all Prime Ministers before him combined. This profligate spending contributes to inflation. People are suffering. When will he call an election? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement was tabled in the House of Commons yesterday. It is an economic statement which talks about economic growth and supporting Canadians through difficult times with a high cost of living. The economic statement also discusses our responsibility to use taxpayer money and responsibly, to spend it responsibly. And, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what we will continue to do, all while keeping an eye on exactly what support Canadians need from their national government. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. How can we believe the new finance minister? How can we have confidence in what he is saying when yesterday he wasn't even able to answer a journalist's question, what is the national debt of Canada? Now, the former finance minister said in her letter yesterday, and this is very important, I quote, "We need to keep our fiscal powder dry today so we have the reserves that we may need for a coming tariff war." That means eschewing costly political gimmicks, which we can ill afford and which make Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment, unquote. That was her message, the message of the former finance minister to the Prime Minister, who never listens to anyone. Call an election now. The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, our colleague has mentioned the government's deficit, but he knows that our debt-to-GDP ratio is declining, and we have the lowest debt-to-GDP ratio of all G7 countries. My colleague also knows that this government will support Canadians through difficult times. We've helped with $10 a day daycare. We've helped with the dental care program. Conservatives, in fact, voted against all of these programs. This is the time to support Canadians. We will continue to do so, and we will do so responsibly, as always. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I do congratulate the new Minister of Finance on his appointment. That said, there have been crises shaking this government for a long time, just crisis after crisis. Now there is a bad economic statement. We have a huge deficit. We also have money that the government should not have given out, that it cannot recoup. Now, we need to be strong in negotiating with the United States in the context of a significant political and economic crisis. How can this government still think it has the authority and legitimacy to do so? The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I thank the Bloc Québécois leader for his congratulations. Our government is legitimate because our government has the confidence of the House of Commons. The House gave the government its confidence several times last week. As the Bloc Québécois leader said, we are still prioritizing supporting Canadians through tough times. We are also focusing on working with the Trump administration, which will come into office in January. We will work with them to reduce or even eliminate the threat of tariffs. We will protect our borders and we will ensure that our economy succeeds and thrives. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The government does not have the confidence of this House. It does not enjoy the confidence of the House. It enjoys the NDP's weakness. That said, if the government feels legitimate in negotiating on Canada's behalf in a potentially very dire crisis for Canada, then why doesn't the government seek the support and confidence of Canadians with this leader or with another? In January, that can happen in January. They need the support of Canadians, and if they don't have it, then bye-bye. The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, once again, Canadians expect that their federal government, working, of course, with provincial governments, work hard to protect the economy from the threat of tariffs. That's exactly what we have done since the dinner we had with President Trump in Florida. I must inform colleagues, Mr. Speaker, that I had some very encouraging and positive exchanges with Mr. Leitnik, Secretary of Commerce. Yesterday, as I said, we spoke with Mr. Holman, who is responsible for the borders. They're very open-minded, and I find it very positive. We will continue this good work.
For Burnaby South. People are right to be angry. We've got our Prime Minister who's more interested in protecting his own job than he is in protecting Canadians against a threat.
I'm going to ask the honourable members, in particular the honourable member from Miramichi Grand Lake and the member from Dufferin-Caledon, please, to not take their voices. I'm going to invite the honourable member from Burnaby South to start his question again.
People are right to be angry. They've got a Prime Minister who's more interested in protecting his own job than defending Canadians against Trump. We've got a Prime Minister who has failed to defend workers from rich CEOs like the Conservatives love, who continue to rip off Canadians and drive up the cost of food and homes. The Prime Minister has failed. For New Democrats, it's always workers first and not CEOs. And not CEOs who the Conservatives want to defend. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge he has failed? He has to quit. Yeah.
Order, please. The honourable minister, and leader of the government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House voted in confidence of this government just last week on multiple occasions. Mr. Speaker, we have important work to do on behalf of Canadians. We have a very important relationship to manage with the United States at a pivotal time, Mr. Speaker, and that is exactly what this government is focused on doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Burnaby Sud.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
On protecting CEOs to the harm of workers. The
Prime Minister is working harder to defend his own job than to defend Canadians from Donald Trump's threats. The Prime Minister failed to defend workers from CEOs who are taking all the money. This Prime Minister needs to protect workers, not CEOs. The Prime Minister has failed. Will he resign? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the NDP leader knows full well that last week we earned the confidence of this House on several occasions. Our government always works to protect Canadians, Canadian jobs, and the Canadian economy. Now, we're focused on that. And we are focused on properly managing our relations with the United States. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yesterday, the fall economic statement confirmed what former finance minister, the budget officer, and the Globe and Mail already told us, that this weak and now wounded prime minister hijacked the statement to drive Canada through the fiscal guardrail and over a cliff. $62 billion in overspending. That's 50% higher than their own target set just months ago. They told us over and over again that the deficit wouldn't exceed $40 billion. Simple question. Why did they mislead Canadians again?
Yeah, way to go! The Honourable Minister of Finance and for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, far from misleading Canadians, the government thinks it's important to be transparent in terms of the fiscal picture of the government. That's why, Mr. Speaker, based on legal advice and accounting practices, the government booked contingent liabilities that increase the initial deficit projection to the level that my colleague referred to. Mr. Speaker, this is about righting historical wrongs with Indigenous peoples, something the previous government, Conservative government, ignored. And Mr. Speaker, we think the responsible thing to do is to be transparent with Canadians. That's exactly what we did.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, of the Liberal ministers that still remain, not a single one would stick around yesterday to even defend the statement. They dropped it here and then ran out the door. $62 billion of new debt and new inflationary spending for Canadians to pay on their grocery bills, on their home heating, and on everything else. That's equivalent to spending $1 every second for nearly 2,000 years. The Prime Minister has clearly lost control of his caucus. He's lost control of his cabinet. He's now lost control of spending. So when will he give Canadians the chance to weigh in and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we have no lessons to learn from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. On the eve of Christmas, what we presented to Canadians, Mr. Speaker, it's no time for slogan. It's no time for smiles, Mr. Speaker. This is time for us to be serious. What the Minister of Finance presented yesterday was a fall economic statement which is focused on growth, investment in our workers, investment in our industry, and investment in Canada. Mr. Speaker, you know what? Because confident countries invest in themselves, something that the Conservative could not understand. We'll stand for Canadians. We'll stand for Canada on this side of the House.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, who is in charge of the clattering train? The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of Canadians, and now he's lost the confidence of his MPs and his cabinet. He's focused not on Canadians, but on himself as he clings to power. Yesterday, the government posted a $62 billion deficit blowing through the guardrails. The government is careening out of control. Things are in complete chaos. When will we get an election?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what the Conservative opposition is doing is they are focused on us while we are focused on Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on ensuring that we are delivering affordability measures for Canadians at a difficult time. We are focused on ensuring that we have a strong relationship with our most important trading partner, the United States. That is what this government is squarely focused on: Canadians, protecting the Canadian economy and protecting Canadian jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, not only did the statement post a $62 billion deficit, it revised 2025 growth down, and it revised 2025 unemployment up. The Prime Minister has failed to recognize the gravity of the moment. He's focused not on Canadians, but on himself. His government is in utter and complete chaos. So when will the Prime Minister realize that the end is here, that his government and this Parliament is dead, and call an election?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we have the lowest debt and deficit in the G7, Mr. Speaker, and in addition, in the fall economic statement, Canadians can see supports for affordable housing, supports for $10 a day childcare, supports for public servants who want early retirement, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, what do? We support Canadians as opposed to what they do, which is cut, cut, cut.
L'honorable député de Louis Saint.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we do, of course, congratulate the new finance minister. Just 9 years ago, in 2015, he, the Prime Minister, and everyone on that side of the House, they were elected promising 3 small deficits, and then in 2019, a $0 deficit. Then, a few years later, he posts the worst deficit in Canadian history, $62 billion. How can he look people in the eye and tell them that everything's going well? Can he, the new minister, tell the Prime Minister that he needs to call an election to determine whether or not he deserves the confidence of Canadians?
Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and of Intergovernmental Affairs. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the congratulations. Now, Mr. Speaker, it will come as no surprise to you that we do not share his pessimism. We have a lot of confidence in the Canadian economy, in Canadian workers, and in the fall economic statement, which gave Canadians a lot of hope, especially as regards support to them during tough economic times. We've also announced very significant investments. I'm excited to talk more about them this afternoon. For instance, we are investing in our border to protect Canadians and also work with our American partners. We're here for Canadians. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's Finance 101. A deficit is money that you don't have. $62 billion is money that we don't have. It's money that we're punting down the road to our children, grandchildren, and great-children who haven't even been born yet. They will have to pay for today's poor financial management. All Canadians know that the Prime Minister is alone in his bubble. Canada has never before had a Prime Minister so narcissistic, selfish, and full of himself. The problem, though, is that all Canadians, even those who haven't even been born yet, are going to have to pay for his poor management. When will there be an election so we can elect a good, strong, Conservative government? The Honourable Minister of Finance and of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, it will come as no surprise to our colleague that we disagree with the idea of having a Conservative government which would cut and gut the programs that support Canadians. They voted against our $10 a day daycare program to help Canadian families. They voted against the Canada Dental Plan. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect a responsible government. We're focused on supporting Canadians through economically, financially challenging times. This is what our government is doing. The honourable member for Terrebonne. Well, with a $62 billion deficit, we can all agree that it's no time to be offering election goodies. Yet, in yesterday's economic statement, 98% of the new money to combat the rising cost of living is the GST holiday. Worse still, this purely electoral measure represents almost everything the government is doing to tackle the cost of living between now and 2030. This 2-month tax break, which the former finance minister described as a costly political gimmick, well, this is the Liberals' long-term economic vision. If that's the long-term economic vision, do they understand now why Quebecers are calling for an election? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives have been talking about elections and only elections since December. We have been supporting Canadians and Quebecers since 2015. That's why, for example, we put forward the Canada Dental Care Plan. It helps 1 million Quebecers. It gives them dental insurance that most of them never had before. Unfortunately, both the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois insist on being against the Canada Dental Care Plan. And in fact, the Conservative leader claims it doesn't even exist. The honourable member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, it's very simple. The Quebecers, in fact, never wanted the GST holiday. What's more, the GST holiday is downright harmful to our small and medium enterprises. Yet it's the only element of the economic update to deal with the rising cost of living. And it accounts for 98% of new spending. The Liberals are out of steam, they've run out of ideas, and they're running out of resources, human resources, after the resignation of the finance minister, who is joining 8 other Liberal ministers who are jumping ship. Quebecers deserve better than a government that's falling apart and crumbling before their very eyes. Will the Prime Minister finally call an election? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. I think it's very obvious that the Bloc Québécois is against cutting taxes. But had they read the fall economic statement, they would know that we've created over 330,000 jobs in Canada. Well-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker. Canada has experienced the highest salary growth of all G7 countries. Canadians are bringing home paychecks that are 5% bigger, even after accounting for inflation, Mr. Speaker. We are making sure that Canadians' paychecks increase, Mr. Speaker. I'm hearing a lot of noise from the back of the room. I hope that not everyone will start talking without having been recognized by the chair. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Once upon a time, economic statements contained measures. Today, they just contain bad news. What a contrast between the enthusiasm of 2015 and the cynical electioneering deficits of 2024. What a contrast between the solidarity of 2015 and the ministers who are jumping ship one by one. What a contrast between the Prime Minister who was a superstar in 2015 and the Prime Minister who tonight will struggle to get people out for his Christmas party. Mr. Speaker, it's over. That's it. That's all. It's over. Will the Prime Minister call an election? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised to hear my colleague talk like that. In the fall economic statement, if he had in fact taken the time to read it, there are significant investments for Quebec in the statement. For example, artificial intelligence, which will be at the very heart of the 21st century economy. As you know, Montreal has the most startups of anywhere in Canada, and in the statement there are investments for Quebec, for industries, for workers. Mr. Speaker, we expect each and every member of Parliament to celebrate Canada. It's time to celebrate Canada. Thank you.
Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his caucus, of his cabinet, and of Canadians. The Deputy Prime Minister resigned because the Prime Minister said that he had lost confidence in her. A minister must speak on behalf of the Prime Minister, and with his full confidence in making your decision, you made clear, I no longer credibly enjoy that confidence. Just last week, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was talking about how Americans have lost the ability for females to lead in that country. But the Prime Minister only uses females when it's useful for him. Isn't that right, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
No.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, of his caucus, and Canadians. He blew through the $61.9 billion deficit over the $40 billion guardrails that he had set. The finance minister, she tried to warn him, and he fired her for trying to warn him. He offered her another position, and she refused. Why is it that this Prime Minister only has confidence in women until they question him? Exactly.
Wow. The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives keep bandying about the word feminism, but let's talk about tangible policies that are offered in the fall economic statement for women. $50 million to build more shelter spaces across this country, Mr. Speaker. $15 million for women's organizations whose goal it is to end gender-based violence, as well as permanent funding for the Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund. This is what it looks like to have the backs of women. Conservatives know nothing about that.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
This Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, of his Liberal MPs, of Canadians as he clings to power. Hours before she was set to release the fall economic statement, the former finance minister quit, saying, quote, "On Friday you told me you no longer want me to serve as your finance minister and offered me another position in cabinet," unquote. The fake feminist Prime Minister and the conflict of interest carbon tax carney forced the former finance minister to blow through the $40 billion guardrail with a massively irresponsible $62 billion deficit, making her take the blame. Will this fake feminist Prime Minister take responsibility for his economic vandalism and call an election?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, if Conservatives want to talk about feminism, then let's look at some facts. Let's look at some policies that actually support women across this country. Policies like $10 a day childcare. Policies like the National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence, which was actually supported in our latest economic statement, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives, by the way, opposed every single one of these measures. On this side of the House, we will always support women. Who knows what's going on over there?
The honourable member from Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, this Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs and Canadians as he clings to power. The former finance minister said, quote, "To be effective, a minister must speak on behalf of the Prime Minister and with his full confidence. In making your decision, you made clear that I no longer credibly enjoy that confidence and possess the authority that comes with it." It is clear that this fake feminist Prime Minister threw the former finance minister under the bus, just as he did with other women who previously stood up to him. Will this fake feminist Prime Minister take responsibility for his economic vandalism and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are distracting from the fact that the Bank of Canada has cut interest rates 5 times down to 3.25%. Yesterday, our government published the fall economic statement, and I'm happy to share, Mr. Speaker, that it is an investment of $189 million into the Black Entrepreneurship Program that has already helped 16,000 Black entrepreneurs across this country. We are going to be investing in digital adoption for small and medium-sized enterprises of $500 million. We're going to reduce red tape. And, Mr. Speaker, while we're shopping during the GST holiday, let's support local. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The caregivers pilot programs expired back in June. The minister promised caregivers permanent residence on arrival. 6 months later, no information, no application process has been released about this new pilot. Given the Liberals' about-face on regularization and scapegoating of migrants for their failures, caregivers are really concerned that their hard-fought promise of landed status on arrival will be forgotten. Will the minister deliver on this promise and open the pathway for applications by January 1st, 2025, or will this be another Liberal broken promise?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees.
Mr. Speaker, caregivers are extremely important to this country and to the care that they provide to our most vulnerable. We are still tracking to launch this, and clearly this is a priority of the government. This is on track. We may have some modifications to make, but this is still a high priority of the government. Thank you.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
The Liberals' economic update failed to recognize the reality facing working Canadians. It failed to address the housing crisis. It failed to address the healthcare crisis. It failed to address the youth jobs crisis. Instead of fighting for Canadians, Liberals are fighting with themselves. And Conservatives only propose cuts that will hurt workers while big business gets tax breaks and handouts. Budgets reveal who governments are really working for. Why are Liberals, like Conservatives, working for CEOs while ignoring everyone else?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and that honourable member would know because we worked very well together to create a national pharmacare plan that's going to make sure that Canadians everywhere have access to the medication they need. And it builds upon a Canadian advantage that we need to maintain, an advantage that sees Canadians not only living longer, but living 6 years more in health than they do in the United States. The lifespan that we enjoy is every bit as important as every other measurement. And the advantage that we have in health cannot be lost. We must continue to drive forward and transform our health system from one based in illness to one based in prevention.
The honourable member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, last week the government of Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec announced a historic agreement on Churchill Falls, as well as an agreement to develop the Gull Island project and upgrade other hydroelectric assets. This deal has the potential to transform Newfoundland and Labrador, create tens of thousands of jobs, and sweeping economic spin-offs. Can the Minister of Rural Economic Development inform Canadians how our government helped create the economic conditions to make this deal possible?
The Honourable Minister for Rural Economic Development.
Speaker, after decades, Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec have signed an historic agreement that will have huge benefits for all. Our government is working towards a net zero electricity grid and provided Newfoundlanders and Labradorians with assistance on rate mitigation. That, along with the investment tax credits for net zero projects, help create the conditions for this agreement to make Newfoundland and Labrador an economic and energy powerhouse. I congratulate both premiers on this historic deal, and I can't wait to see the shovels in the ground. Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, his caucus, and all Canadians as he desperately clings to power. Yesterday, the Liberals dropped their fall economic statement and literally ran out of the House. A $62 billion deficit, missing their target by a whopping 55%. The end result? Canadians are now paying more on debt interest charges than on health care. When will this Prime Minister end the misery, call a carbon tax election, so Conservatives can finally fix what they have broken?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to inform the Justice critic that, in fact, in that fall economic statement, he would have seen a series of measures that address community safety in our communities across the country. He would have seen measures that crack down on auto theft. He would have seen stricter bail and sentencing provisions. He would have seen provisions in the sex offender registries to get tough on child sex predators. He would have seen securing our borders to provide confidence to our American counterparts, cracking down on money laundering and terrorist financing. These are all measures that we all have an interest in promoting, passing, and getting funded in this country to keep Canadians safe.
The honourable member for Brantford Brant.
After 9 years of this Prime Minister's economic vandalism and inflationary spending, he has added more to the debt than all previous Prime Ministers combined. Now Canadians are paying more. Our national debt now sits at $1.24 trillion, an astronomical number that our future generations will have to deal with. Canada's promise of powerful paychecks, affordable housing, safe streets have all been shattered under the NDP Liberals. This Prime Minister has lost confidence of his caucus, the House, and Canadians. When will he call an immediate carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, that member is a former Crown attorney. He knows in terms of keeping communities safe, it starts with addressing the prolific amount of guns that are in our communities. What's in that fall economic statement? $597 million to take weapons off of our streets. What else is in there? Mr. Speaker, that member knows that organized criminality is a problem in Canada from coast to coast to coast. What we are doing with organized criminality is ensuring tougher penalties for financial crimes, cracking down on money laundering, and cracking down on terrorist financing. You get at the cause of the problem when you address the money flow. That's what we're doing in the fall economic statement. We wish we could have their support.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le Fjord.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of his MPs, and of Canadians. But despite all of that, he is obstinately clinging to power. After 9 years of economic vandalism and inflationary spending, he's accumulated more debt than all of his predecessors put together. Result, Canadians are now paying $53.7 billion in interest on the debt. That's more than they pay every year for health transfers, Mr. Speaker. I'll say it again, more than for health transfers. Can the Prime Minister set his ego aside, think about Canadians, and call an election? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I would invite my colleague to read the fall economic statement, because if he were to do that, he would see that Canada is in a particularly good financial position compared to all of its G7 counterparts. They're expecting great economic growth next year. We've signed an agreement with the Government of Quebec for hundreds of millions of dollars to help the forestry sector in his region, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives hadn't said a word about that. When it's time to help Canadians, they are never present. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of his MPs, and of Canadians. As if the $40 billion guardrail wasn't enough, well, they've given us a fall economic statement with a deficit of $62 billion. So much for the guardrail. Canadians are paying more in interest on the debt than they're paying for health care. He is desperately clinging to power. Enough is enough. When's the election? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More good news for Quebecers today with the publication of the Clean Electricity Strategy. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to be invested in collaboration with Hydro-Quebec, with the Government of Quebec, and with businesses to develop the electric system that we'll need for the future to decarbonize our transit sector, to decarbonize industry and buildings. That's how we're going to build the economy and the jobs and the Canada of the 21st century. The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Well, we don't need more than 30 seconds to tell you what the Liberals' record is. The Prime Minister just did one thing this fall, and that's buy time. He bought time by letting the Conservatives paralyze work in the House without ever trying to negotiate a way to get out of this impasse. He bought time with his vote-buying gimmicks. He bought time, and he's continuing to buy time today since his finance minister quit. And doesn't matter what's going on, he buys time. But does he not realize that by doing nothing other than buying time, he's lost the respect of Quebecers? The Honourable... Order. The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. And as she knows very well, we won the confidence of this House several times in the last few weeks, but I would like to maybe mention to her some points in the fall economic statement that she maybe hasn't read yet, but if there's one element that she should be interested in, it's our support for culture, which is in the fall economic statement. Our support for tourism to bring more conventions back to Canada. And Mr. Speaker, we should be proud of the investments that we've made in culture. The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Well, this session has been one session too many. The Liberals have monopolized attention, but not thanks to their work. They've refused to work for seniors and for farmers. They've refused to work to get rid of the religious exception. They've refused to work to guarantee Quebecers access to early requests for medical assistance in dying. Unfortunately, they have been focused on internal caucus fights. That's where their attention's been, and that's why the following question is on everybody's lips today. When are we going to get rid of this government that doesn't want to work for Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, I would just like to highlight that on this side of the House, we are working for Quebecers. On this side of the House, we negotiate with the Government of Quebec to make sure that all the investments that we do are good for Quebecers. I'll just give you a couple of examples. The dental care program, the child care benefit. In the fall economic statement, there are rental help because the federal government pays to help renters. There's also investments in AI, housing, and, Mr. Speaker, it's this government that has done the work.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
This week, Liberal Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, of his Liberal MPs and of Canadians, but he still clings to power. And yesterday, the economic statement from his phantom finance minister, Carbon Tax Carney, posted a $62 billion deficit, which is absolutely devastating for Canadians. And they tried to pin it on the finance minister, and she quit in protest. Canadians have had enough of these dirty Liberal backroom deals where Carbon Tax Carney gets all of the power but has none of the accountability. When will these Liberals call a carbon tax election? Because Canadians just can't trust them.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, rather than talking down Canada, let's stress the facts. Inflation has come down to 1.9%, Mr. Speaker.
Exactly.
We have the lowest debt and the lowest deficit in the G7. In the fall economic statement, we put forward numerous measures to support businesses and families in Canada, including $10 a day childcare, which is going to give rise to 300,000 jobs, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we believe in supporting Canadians while maintaining a prudent fiscal outlook, something the Conservatives could never claim to do. Vive le Canada!
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Just like the 9 years of failures of this NDP Liberal government, Canadians have lost confidence in this Prime Minister, and they showed it last night with the overwhelming majority election of Tamara Jansen in Cloverdale, Langley City. The Phantom Finance Minister posted a $62 billion devastating deficit that Canadians are going to be paying for generations. These Liberals have absolutely lost control, and this flailing Prime Minister doesn't have the confidence of his cabinet, of his caucus, of Canadians. When's he going to call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the fall economic statement yesterday,
Order.
I remember it.
It's important for all members to ensure that they, especially male members, there are particular rules in terms of the dress that is in this place. I am not certain that the sweater is a trop, but I'll invite the Honourable Minister perhaps to button up his jacket.
Today, Mr. Speaker, we actually celebrate the 125th anniversary of the Canada Forest Service, which is something that I think all parliamentarians should be able to support. Mr. Speaker, in the fall economic statement were investment tax credits related to electricity production. It is part of building an economy for the future that will create jobs and economic prosperity across this country. It will ensure affordability for consumers. It will ensure reliability of the grid. And today, I am very pleased to say we are launching Canada's first clean electricity strategy across the country and the clean electricity regulations. It is an important day for Canada.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grassland.
The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs, and Canadians as he is desperately clinging to power. He forced the Finance Minister to join the ghosts of ministers past in favour of Phantom Finance Minister Carbon Tax Carney because they thought that her massive deficit wasn't big enough. With all the chaos he has caused around him, the Prime Minister's own inner circle is abandoning him. He went to the Governor-General yesterday to appoint Carney's placeholder, but why didn't he go one step further and just call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Mr. Speaker, another element of the fall economic statement yesterday was the launch of the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. That will make Indigenous peoples partners in projects across this country. It is part of building an economy that is inclusive and prosperous on a go-forward basis. On the other side of the House, we have a group that actually are a bunch of climate skeptics and climate deniers who have a plan for the economy that is based on the 1960s and looking backwards. On this side of the House, we are building a future for Canadians.
The honourable member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We live in an increasingly virtual world, and it's our job to ensure that this online space is safe for our children and all Canadians. That's why our government introduced a plan to do exactly that in the Online Harms Act. Unfortunately, the Conservatives are blocking this important legislation. Their obstruction means that children, women, and minority groups remain in danger. I'm appalled that the Conservatives won't put Canadians before partisan politics and work with us. Can the Minister of Justice explain the consequences we face by not passing the Online Harms Act? Thank you.
For the second time today, I'm going to ask the honourable members from Grand Lake, Miramichi Grand Lake, and from Dufferin-Caledon to please not take the floor unless the Speaker recognizes them. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, last week in this place, the Conservatives blocked the child protection measures in the Online Harms Act from advancing. Worse still, the Conservatives have vowed that if we succeed in passing this legislation with the help of the Bloc and the NDP, they will actually reverse it at the earliest opportunity. What does this mean? That means if we get child sex abuse material off of the internet, if they took power, they would put it back on, Mr. Speaker. I wish I could make this up. That position is morally bankrupt. What I would say is that when you claim to care about victims of abuse, you need to stand up for victims of abuse. I would ask them to please do that.
I'd like to apologize to the honourable member from Miramichi Grand Lake. Apparently he was not the person who had spoken out, not recognised by the two. The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost all control. Not only has the Prime Minister long ago lost the moral authority to govern, the Prime Minister has lost his ability to carry out the basic functions of governing, with the shambolic spectacle of his finance minister resigning hours before she was scheduled to deliver the government's fall economic statement. This is a government in complete and utter chaos. When will the Prime Minister admit that he has lost all control and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, this may be the last opportunity I have to answer a question in the House of Commons as a minister, and I want to take an opportunity to say thank you to everybody back home in my community and all members of this House on both sides of the aisle for an opportunity to engage in debate over the years and to put competing ideas on the table. When it comes to the way that caucuses should operate, I would remind my honourable colleague, as one of the people who's written to advocate for his community to receive funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund, that he's now been banned by his own leader to continue to advocate on behalf of the good people of St. Albert, Edmonton. Mr. Speaker, it has been an honour to serve. I look forward to what the future may hold, and I want to say congratulations to a term well served by all colleagues.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of Canadians, lost the confidence of many of his MPs, and yesterday he lost the confidence of his Finance Minister. And no wonder, because after 9 years, this Prime Minister has broken everything. He's broken our borders, broken immigration, broken housing, and broken the budget. So, when will the Prime Minister just stop? Stop breaking things, acknowledge that he doesn't have a mandate to continue to govern, and call a carbon tax election.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
The fall economic statement that we tabled yesterday, Mr. Speaker, is about growth, and it's about investing in our business community and in our economy, Mr. Speaker. The accelerated capital cost allowance will ensure that Canadian businesses stay on this side of the border, stay in Canada, that our creation of jobs will continue to increase. 330,000 jobs were created in the last year alone, and these are good-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker. Even accounting for inflation, salaries have risen by 5%, the highest in the G7, Mr. Speaker. We're ensuring that Canadians bring home stronger paychecks and better jobs.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs, and of Canadians while desperately clinging to power. Yesterday, they found a random Liberal minister to table the disastrous fall economic statement after he fired his finance minister, who wouldn't sign off on smashing through her $40 billion fiscal guardrail, all in order to make room for phantom finance minister Mark Carney. Will the Prime Minister has lost control of his own government. Will he call a carbon tax election today?
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the other side of the House, they're big on outreach, but they're really weak on facts. When we talk about Canadians, we want to show that we support them and invest in them. We have the lowest ratio of GDP to debt in the G7. Interest rates have gone down. We've been investing in Canadians. That's what you do as a government, Mr. Speaker. You invest in childcare. You invest in national school food programs. You invest in pharmacare because we invest and fight for Canadians. They will cut and they will talk Canadians down. On this side of the House, we are proud to fight for Canadians every single day.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, children in Canada need protection from online harm. The abuse that occurs online is endangering our kids, and it's time we act to prevent more families from being harmed. Our government has risen to this challenge, putting forward a plan to help parents and children. C-63, the Online Harms Act, creates safety measures that will save lives. The Conservatives are now the only roadblock to making the bill a reality in Canada. Mr. Speaker, the safety of our children should not be political. Can the Minister of Justice please discuss the importance of this critical legislation and why we need it passed now? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, this legislation will literally save children's lives. I find it very difficult to comprehend how the official opposition Conservatives can bear being the only party in this House obstructing the advancement of this legislation. I would share a question that was posed at committee by a mother whose child suffered horrendous abuse. She asked, quote, "What kind of person doesn't want to protect the future of our children or grandchildren?" End quote. Mr. Speaker, once again, I implore the official opposition to look beyond their self-interest and look at these parents and their children in the eye who need help. It's time we pass the Online Harms Act with unanimous consent.
Order. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a shortage of family doctors. It's an acute crisis that is getting more and more severe each and every day. The Liberals seem to be focused on their own internal problems while parents are looking to get care for their sick kids. The former Deputy Prime Minister said as much yesterday when she resigned. And the Conservatives, sadly, just want to cut health care, cut health services and destroy public health care. Given the emergency, what is the Liberal government's plan to address this shortage and make sure we have more family doctors now in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what we have done is signed agreements with every province and every territory. We saw in the High baseline data last year that nearly every jurisdiction in the country saw more doctors, more nurses. It's not enough, but provinces have to do their part and have to be responsible for this health transformation. But I'll tell you, there's something huge this Parliament can do, and that's pass Bill C-72, which is a connected care legislation. Just one example of allowing something like AI Scribe to be used in our system would create the equivalent of 1,000 new doctors in a very short period of time. Connected care can open up new avenues of care, and that's something this Parliament can do.
The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Well, thanks to this Prime Minister, our nation has become the laughing stock of the narcissist at Mar-a-Lago. Our country is facing an unprecedented level of political coercion, and Canadians deserve a strong and proud defence of our values and our jobs. We're not going to get that from the Liberal gong show or from the predatory and pusillanimous Conservatives who'd sell us out in a second. Our NDP leader called for a war room, bringing together Labour, business, leaders to defend Canada. So will the Liberals stop their squabbling? It's time to drop the gloves, go over the boards, and fight for our country instead of fighting amongst themselves.
Here. The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for that question. Yesterday, we tabled the fall economic statement, and I think this is an area where the honourable member and I would agree. The Canada-U.S. relationship is extremely important, and in the fall economic statement, we are strengthening the regime to prohibit forced labor in our supply chains, something that is really important for workers in our country, and to strengthen this trade relationship with our allies in the United States. Thanks so much, Mr. Speaker.
And so brings to an end a question period. Oral questions. Questions orales.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost control, but he is clinging to power. We knew that he had lost control of the voters, of immigration, of spending, of inflation, of the cost of housing, but now he has lost control of his cabinet. The Vice Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance has stepped down, and she stepped down hours before presenting Canada's fall economic statement with an enormous deficit. When will we have an election?
L'honorable leader du gouvernement à la Chambre des communes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is looking forward to presenting the economic statement this afternoon, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the member for University Rosedale for everything that she has done for this country and everything that she will continue to do for this country. Her accomplishments make quite a long list, and her place in history is assured, and we are very proud of everything that she has done for this government.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Prime, yet he clings to power. He's lost control of immigration, lost control of the borders, lost control of spending, deficits, inflation, housing costs. In fact, his former, apparently, finance minister was trying to get spending under control by capping the deficit at an already crazy $40 billion. But he took carbon tax Carney's advice and pushed her beyond that guardrail and was trying to throw her off the cliff. She's now resigned minutes before presenting her fall economic update. This cannot go on. When will we have a carbon tax elected?
Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government looks forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon. But I would also like to take this opportunity to extend my gratitude for all that the member from University Rosedale has accomplished for this country and will continue to do for this country. She has played an integral role in this government. First of all, standing up for Canada and defending NAFTA, bringing forward universal childcare, and the incredible work that she has done in defending Ukraine. We are very grateful for all that she's contributed to this government and to Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
For the Finance Minister. Who are you?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at a time when Canadians are struggling, we are happy to bring forward measures that are going to assist them. Things like the GST tax cut that took place starting this past Saturday, going until February 15th. And while the Conservative leader and the members of his caucus stay focused on us, we're going to stay focused on helping.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it was a serious question. Who is the Finance Minister? After the Finance Minister's resignation this morning, automatically the Industry Minister became Minister of Finance. And congratulations. But he immediately quit. After him, in the line of precedence, it was the two Randys. Well, they don't want it. So now we don't have a finance minister just a couple of minutes before the fall economic statement will be presented. So where's the minister?
The Honourable Leader of the Government,
the Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said, our government is looking forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon. There are important measures in that update, measures that are important for Canadians. It's time for the Leader of the Conservatives to recognize that while he's focused on us, we are focused on Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, just to underline the chaos we're faced with here, the Finance Minister resigned the day she was to present the fall budget, which was going to contain a massive deficit overrun. The job then went automatically to the Industry Minister, who immediately resigned, like on the spot, which then went down the line, and the next person in order was the famous two Randys. And they're not available to do the job either. We're now less than 2 hours away from the fall economic update. Why won't the Prime Minister have the courage to come in here, present it himself, and put it for a confidence vote tonight?
I would like to remind all members, as I did during statements today, for members to be careful not to refer to other sitting members by their names, but to use their titles or to use their writing names. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, while the Leader of the Opposition continues to play politics in this place, we look forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon that will have a series of important measures for Canadians, things that are going to help them with the affordability challenges that are going to put Canada, Canadian jobs, and the Canadian economy first. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would like to ask the honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton, to please not take the floor when he is not recognized by the Speaker.
Where is he?
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. We already knew that between 20 and 40 Liberal MPs no longer had confidence in the Prime Minister. We also knew that 8 ministers would be jumping ship. Today, the Minister of Finance decided to step down instead of presenting the fall economic statement. She wrote, black and white, that she disagrees with the Prime Minister on the best path forward for Canada. So she has also taken away her confidence in the Prime Minister. We are watching this government, this Liberal government, fall apart, and it's pretty ugly to see. Will the Prime Minister call an election? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank my colleague for his question. As I mentioned, as a government, we are looking forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon. There are important measures in there for Canadians when it comes to affordability in particular, and we are exclusively focused on Canadians. And we will continue to protect Canadian economy and Canadian jobs. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The Deputy Prime Minister has quit because of the Liberals' electoral handouts. She said that Canadians know when we're working for them and when we're focused on ourselves. Mr. Speaker, people can see through their political games. Quebecers don't want these political handouts. Businesses don't want them. Even the Finance Minister doesn't want them. The only person who wants these is the NDP leader and the Prime Minister of Canada. Will they finally stop sabotaging Canada's economy for, so they can buy votes? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I would like to thank my colleague for his question. Cutting the GST on essentials for Canadians is something that's important for many Canadians. And I've heard from many people in my riding who have said that this is something that is important for them. Restaurants, small and medium-sized businesses say that this is something that's important for them, and we are proud of having put that motion forward.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
People can't afford their groceries. People can't find a home to call their own. And the Conservatives are
Order!
Just another random
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South from the top, please.
Canadians literally cannot afford the groceries they need. They can't afford to find a home to call their own. And now Trump, buddies of the Conservatives, MAGA Conservatives love this guy, Trump is threatening hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada. And the Prime Minister is more focused on himself, on infighting. The Prime Minister cannot remain in that position. Will he resign?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, this is not the time for slogan. This is not the time for partisanship. This is not a time to make jokes, Mr. Speaker. This is about rallying for Canadians. This is a time where Canadians need to know that this House and all the members are standing behind them, that we're going to invest in Canadians, that we're going to invest in this country, that we're going to invest in our workers, and that we're going to invest in our industry, Mr. Speaker, and that we're going to prepare Canada to be the best prepared to be able to deal with our U.S. friends. Mr. Speaker, this is a time where we show that we're all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
So I'll ask again in French. Les gens de la misère.
People are having a very hard time paying for groceries. Young people can't find affordable housing. And beyond that, we have the threat of Trump's tariffs. And that's putting hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada in danger. And instead of dealing with issues that are important for Canadians, the Prime Minister is dealing with fighting in his own party. It's clear that the Prime Minister cannot continue. Will he resign today, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, as I said, this isn't a time for jokes. This isn't a time for partisanship. It's certainly not a time for conservative slogans, Mr. Speaker. It's time, Mr. Speaker, to work together as parliamentarians to defend Canada, to invest in Canada, to defend our workers, to invest in our industry. And, Mr. Speaker, I call on all members of this House to do their civic duty to work for the good of Canada so that we can face the incoming American administration. Mr. Speaker, today we are all Canadians. Let's work together.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP leader is absolutely right. This cannot continue. This Prime Minister cannot go on like this. Housing costs have doubled. Food bank use has doubled. The debt has doubled. Gun crime has doubled. And now we face troubling tariff threats from a president who can see weakness coming from a mile away. The Prime Minister must leave this job, but there's only one person who can remove him, and that's the leader of the NDP. Yes. Will he put the country ahead of his pension and vote for a carbon tax election now?
Yeah.
Eric? So, although the preamble to that question dealt with the administration of government, the question itself did not, and the chair has made it clear that we're not doing that. The honourable member from Thornhill.
Prime Minister has lost control. The Prime Minister's own deputy quit just hours before her economic statement, all of a sudden saying, Canadians know when we're focused on ourselves, and describing a newfound disdain for costly political gimmicks. Those are her quotes. Right. This after her own political rival, Mark Carney, wrote the fall economic statement full of things that she didn't want to present. The old boys club isn't in charge. Canadians are. Right. And it's time for credible leadership in the seriousness of this moment, not the fake feminism of this phony Prime Minister. It's time for Canadians to decide. So will anyone or everyone over there finally agree?
Yeah. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned earlier, we are looking forward today to presenting the fall economic statement that is going to have a series of important measures for Canadians. At a time like this, it is important that all of us band together, united as Canadians, to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect the Canadian economy, protect Canadian jobs, and to stand up for Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, they can't even stand by each other. Hours before delivering the fiscal update, the finance minister resigned. She lost confidence in the Prime Minister. Last night, the failed housing minister and the worst immigration minister in the history of this country also resigned. A couple of Randys, and now they're up to 9 ministers that need to be replaced. He's lost control of the government. The party of backroom boys is over. The backbench should look up from their laptops, and the NDP leader shouldn't be the only one in this House with confidence in the Prime Minister. Present the statement and call a vote today.
Hear, hear. Again, I'm just going to, for the last time, order. Order. I'm going to ask members once again to remind themselves not to refer to members by their first names. The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure who she's talking about, but I'm still here for now. I can guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, that there are two kinds of people who run for office in politics. There are people who want to do something, and there are people who want to be somebody. And I can tell you, on our side of the House, we want to do things. We want to build the houses to make sure families can afford to keep the roof over their heads. We want to make sure families can afford to keep their food on the table to feed their kids. We want to make sure people can find a job to go to that gives them a sense of pride and allows them to contribute to their communities. On the Conservative side, their guy has been writing essays about why he should be Prime Minister since he was a teenager.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
On Friday, the Prime Minister told Canada's first female finance minister but she was fired, but to keep sweet and present their wildly overspent budget on Monday so that he and an unelected man, Mark Carbon Tax Carney, wouldn't have to take the blame for their broken budget. He then, unbothered, released a video of him making cinnamon buns to get the women folks vote. How can any woman in that caucus defend that man instead of calling for an election now?
Here, here. The order. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I didn't realize cinnamon buns were a gendered food, but what I would say is that her question says more about how that member and Conservative members view women in this country than anything else. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill
are facing violence in the streets. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford to buy presents for their kids for the holidays. They can't afford anything. Canadian women are far worse off under this fake feminist prime minister. And now he fired Canada's first female finance minister because she dared question him. That sounds pretty familiar. No strong woman exists in that caucus. Why would any woman defend this man instead of calling for an election?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for that member opposite, but I think she's speaking from her own experience with the Leader of the official opposition when she said that she wasn't going to support him and then spent a year in the hinterlands, Mr. Speaker. But what I will say is that when it comes to actually doing things that support women, we have done that on this side of the House. Whether it's affordable childcare that is making it possible for hundreds of thousands of women to join the workforce, making contraceptions free, or the Canada Child Benefit that is helping families pay the bills. And what do Conservative members of Parliament do every time? They vote against them. So actions speak louder than words, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost control. He's lost control of the economy. He's lost control of immigration. He's lost control of so many files. And now he's lost control of the government. It's long past time for an election. This Prime Minister has sat too long here for any good that he has been doing. In the name of God, will he go to Rideau Hall, call an election, and end the chaos?
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as you well know, and as every member in this place knows, just because a Conservative member of Parliament wishes something does not mean that it actually happens. But what happened over the past couple of weeks, Mr. Speaker, is the government secured the confidence of this House. And the government does enjoy the confidence of this House, Mr. Speaker, and that is why we will be presenting the fall economic statement later today, which we look forward to sharing with Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. We're watching a historic moment here. The Deputy Prime Minister quit, saying that she disagreed with the Prime Minister on the path forward for Canada. The Deputy Prime Minister no longer has confidence in this Prime Minister to govern. Her lack of confidence is added to that of 8 other ministers. The Prime Minister can't claim to have the confidence of the people if he doesn't even have the confidence of his own ministers. Will he do the democratic thing and put his future in the hands of the people and call elections? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, I know that all of our colleagues want to work for Quebec and the entire country, Mr. Speaker. At a time like this, what Quebecers expect is not to hear fiery slogans, Mr. Speaker. They expect us to work together. This is a moment where we need to work together to prepare Quebec and Quebec's industry to face the American administration. We need to prepare Quebec and the rest of Canada to win in the 21st century economy. And I can tell all Quebecers that that's what we're doing on this side of the House. That's what we wake up and do every day, Mr. Speaker. We get up to serve Canadians. We want to be there for Quebecers and the whole country. We'll continue to do so. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. In 2020, the Prime Minister made Bill Morneau step down because he wasn't spending enough, and he put the current Deputy Prime Minister in his place. She has now quit because she wasn't spending enough. Imagine how much the third Finance Minister is going to have to spend to keep their job. They're going to have to go over to the NDP to find somebody who's ready to spend that much. Seriously, this is a disastrous economic statement. Will the Prime Minister resign? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers know that the Bloc likes to pick a fight, Mr. Speaker. But today, Mr. Speaker, the government is going to present a fall economic statement, Mr. Speaker, in which we'll show that we're there for Canada's industry and for workers across the country. At a time like now, Mr. Speaker, what Quebecers and Canadians expect from everyone, and especially from the Bloc Québécois, is that we be there to defend their interests, that we be there for families, for seniors. That's exactly what we're doing on this side of the House, and I hope the Bloc will stand up and support the government, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The government is getting ready to table an economic update without a finance minister. Nobody, not even the Liberals, wants to wear this economic statement. It's the ultimate proof that we can't go forward with a $60 billion deficit just to offer political gimmicks. A deficit for measures that neither Quebecers nor businesses have asked for. Measures in this have been denounced by economists, including in the finance department. It's not surprising that nobody in the Liberal Party wants to be responsible for it. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and stop with these measures? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, we want to move forward. If the Bloc wants to go backwards, that's up to them. But on this side, we're going to go forward, Mr. Speaker. Why? Because families in Quebec, Mr. Speaker, who are watching us, need a government that's there for them, that's there for dental care, for kids, for seniors, for industry, for Quebec, for Canada. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we'll continue to fight. We will continue to fight every day for all Canadians because the country deserves that we be there to stand up for it, Mr. Speaker. I would invite members to please not take the floor when other members have been recognized by the Speaker. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, everyone knows it. The Prime Minister has lost control. He's lost control of immigration. He's lost control of the cost of housing. He's lost control of his caucus. And finally, he's lost control of public spending. And he's lost the confidence of his Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. The Prime Minister's caused a huge amount of damage for Canada. We know it. Most Canadians know it. But now it's time to say enough. Can the Prime Minister please take his responsibility and call an election today? The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, the government later today will be presenting its economic plan. It's a solid plan for Canadians, which will ensure fairness, it will ensure good jobs, and it will continue to make sure that Canadians' economic interests are respected. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I can't believe that the Minister believes the words he's saying. We know that this doesn't make any sense. The Finance Minister quit this morning because of this. She knows that none of this makes any sense. And the Finance Minister said that given the threat that we're facing, the way that we do it, that we deal with that will define us for a generation. We know that Canadians are smart. Will the Prime Minister call an election today? The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors. It's time, Mr. Speaker, to put that partisanship aside and to rally as Canadians together, because Canada will have to face a protectionist threat from the other side of the border. And we are preparing for that, Mr. Speaker. We will have a solid plan, and I hope that we will be able to count on that member and his party when Canada will face that threat. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, what's happening is serious and it's unprecedented. The Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, quit just a few hours before the fall economic statement. It's just a bomb that's gone off because even in the United States and around the world, people are talking about this and in a bad way for Canada. That's the reality that we're looking at today, Mr. Speaker. The former Finance Minister said no more than $40 billion of deficit. The Prime Minister pushed her aside to listen to Mark Carney. Will the Minister of Industry please tell us what Mark Carney's deficit will be when it's presented in 2 hours? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I have a huge amount of respect for the member for Louis Saint Laurent. And as my colleague has already said, we will be presenting the fall economic statement later today, Mr. Speaker. A fall economic statement that'll be there for families. It's an economic statement that'll be there for workers, an economic statement that'll be there for industry, but also, Mr. Speaker, an economic statement that'll be important. And we're expecting that the Conservatives will be ready to support it so that we can face the threat from the United States, Mr. Speaker. Canadians expect better than slogans, Mr. Speaker. Canadians expect actions. Will the Conservatives have the courage to defend Canada and to vote with the government to prepare Canada for the future, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, I've heard that Liberals are a shiver looking for a spine to crawl up, and we're seeing this play out in real time as they've let postal workers and, in fact, all workers down. At this time, when Canada Post CEOs got bonus after bonus while denying fair wages to its workers, this government continues to betray people and cave to corporate interests. As the former Deputy Prime Minister said, Canadians know when their government is not working for them, but working for themselves. New Democrats know where we stand. We stand up for workers every single day. When will this government do the same?
The Honourable Minister of Labour and for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, Canada went through a 4-week postal strike where letter carriers, who we do thank for their service to Canadians and who I know we all have deep affinity for, were out for a very long time. Not only the government, but the Canada Industrial Relations Board has judged there to be a fundamental impasse in the negotiations. We have found an imaginative way forward, a way to get a collective agreement for Canada Post and its hardworking letter carriers, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, they are not listening. The former Deputy Prime Minister said it best today. Canadians know when the government is working for them or for themselves. Well, the Liberals have made it clear where their focus lies. The Minister of Labour's out-of-touch response last week to postal workers is a slap in the face. They deserve safety at work and livable wages. People are tired of the Liberals and Conservatives siding with rich CEOs at their expense. Now Canadians want to know, will the Minister of Labour be the next to resign?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Labour and for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, as that member well knows, postal workers and Canada Post were struggling to find a path forward at the negotiating table. It had gone on for 4 weeks. Canadians were quite rightly, whether they were in Indigenous or remote communities, whether they were small business persons, whether they were people expecting medicines, Mr. Speaker, we were being pressed to act. We found an imaginative way forward with an industrial inquiry commission. We will ensure that Canada Post operates for the holidays, Mr. Speaker, and we're glad that we did.
Good, good.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to talk about something that's on everybody's mind, and that is the Canadian Dental Care Plan. Mr. Speaker, 1 out of 4 Canadians skipped a visit to the dentist because of the cost. But thanks to the Canadian Dental Care Plan, more than 1 million Canadians now receive that care, and every day that number continues to grow. Mr. Speaker, applications for the Canadian Dental Care Plan opened for adults with a valid disability tax credit earlier this year. Can the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion please tell us how persons with disabilities are being helped by this important plan? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Diversity and Inclusion.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Dental Care Plan is already saving Canadians an average more than $730 per year. This will help almost 200,000 persons living with disabilities access dental care. Mr. Speaker, we know this is making a huge difference in the lives of people on the ground. We also know, Mr. Speaker, dental care is health care, and we will continue to make sure Canadians are getting the support that they need. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
This week, Prime Minister has lost control. Carbon Tax Carney wrote the fiscal update, filled it with poison pills, so he could blame the finance minister while pushing her off the fiscal cliff, so he can take her job and eventually the Prime Minister's job. The finance minister figured out the plan, so she resigned in protest. She said she no longer has confidence in this weak Prime Minister and Carbon Tax Carney's plan. If the Prime Minister's own caucus and cabinet don't have confidence in him, even though the leader of the NDP does, why should Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, in a moment where Canadians are looking for leadership, the Conservative asking the question can only come up with names to lobby towards his political opponents.
Colleagues. Colleagues, it is very important for us to just hear the question and hear the answer. The Honourable Minister, from the start.
From the top, from the top.
Mr. Speaker, the very best that the Conservatives can offer to this conversation is name-calling, mudslinging, not solutions to the problems that Canadians are facing. When I talk to people at home, they want their governments to be focusing on creating good jobs to make sure people can afford to put food on the table. They want to make sure that governments are advancing policies to invest in health care and housing. They want to make sure we're doing more to protect the environment. Every time we put policies on the table to accomplish these ends, the Conservatives throw their hands up in the air, vote against, and just sling mud towards their opponents. That is not what people in my community want. It is not what Canadians deserve. We're going to advance solutions that introduce real and meaningful changes that will benefit people who live in this country.
I'm just going to ask the Honourable Member from Dufferin-Caledon, please, to hold off on making comments while the other people have the floor. The Honourable Member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
He's right. After 9 years of that incompetent minister and the Prime Minister, Canadians are looking for leadership. Carbon tax Carney's Canadian comeback fueled a fiscal feud for the former finance minister. Carney wrote the fiscal update, pushed insane inflationary spending, and brought in the 2-month tax trick while trying to blame the finance minister for taking Canada's finances off a cliff. Will he stop passing the blame on to women in his caucus and call a carbon tax election now so common sense Conservatives can give the power back to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I was wrong before when I said all they had was name-calling. Apparently they have alliteration as well. But, Mr. Speaker, that is not going to put food on the table for people who need it in my community or his. It is not going to put a roof over the head of people who are vulnerable in this country. Mr. Speaker, if he wants to make this argument about whether women will be supported, I wonder if he has ever approached the leader of the Conservative Party about using hashtags to specifically attract the attention of men who hate women to support him online. I wonder if he's asked questions about why he's cancelled the investigation as to who was behind it, or perhaps it's because he knows it was the Conservative leader himself.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, everything is out of control. Home prices have doubled. Food bank use is seeing 2 million users in a single month. And the real fiscal advisor to this Prime Minister wrote the financial update for this afternoon. It included a temporary 2-month tax trick and is set to smash through the massive $40 billion deficit promise that was made by the Finance Minister. When they tried to blame the economic vandalism on her, she quit, saying that she doesn't have confidence in this Prime Minister. Now, they can't tell us how much they've spent. They can't tell us who's in charge. How can anyone have confidence in this Prime Minister?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives seem to know the cost of everything but the value of nothing. They do not see value in investing in childcare, which has not only reduced costs for families, but led to the largest increase in women's participation in the labour force in the history of this country. They don't seem to believe there is value in investing in social housing, in public housing, in affordable housing, so everyone in this country can have a roof over their head. They don't believe in the value of the Canada Child Benefit, which is ensuring middle-class families in this country can put food on the table. So before he continues to sling mud and arrows on this side of the House, he perhaps should look inward and ask why he is not even allowed to advocate on behalf of his community, because his leader has said that's just not in order.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Yeah, we talk about having confidence. This is coming from a minister who said just today that he's not going to continue to serve in the cabinet of that Prime Minister. Yeah. Just like the Finance Minister who said she doesn't have confidence, or the 7 other ministers over there, or the 1 in 5 Liberal MPs who said they don't have confidence in this NDP Liberal Prime Minister who broke housing, who broke immigration, who broke our finances in this country. These Liberals talk about costs, but they have absolutely no idea how much they've spent. No government has ever spent so much to achieve as little as this government has. We know why the NDP leader has confidence in this Prime Minister. It's for his pension. But why should Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague is right about one thing. I did announce this morning that I'm not going to be seeking re-election. But I can tell you, if he thinks that's a matter of confidence, I can tell them it's that I have confidence I am going to be the best father to my kids that I could possibly be over the rest of my life. And that is what is most important to me. But Mr. Speaker, while I have the floor, I should say thank you for the opportunity to engage in the tete-a-tete over the years. This may be one of the last opportunities that I have, and I want to use it to make this point. Canadians want governments to invest to increase the quality of life that they get to enjoy. We seem not to be able to agree on that basic tenet. On this side of the House, we will put measures in place to support families, not advocate for cuts.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. I would like to quote the Deputy Prime Minister. Canadians know when we're working for them, and they know when we're focusing on ourselves. Mr. Speaker, she's right. 71% of Quebecers believe that the GST vacation and the Prime Minister's cheque are electioneering measures. Democracy loses out as a whole when so many Quebecers believe that a Prime Minister is trying to buy them off. Will the Prime Minister finally realise that there is a limit to putting Liberal priorities ahead of the common good? The Honourable Minister for Innovation. Mr. Speaker, we have no lessons to learn from the Bloc Québécois. If the Bloc were truly here for Quebecers, they would vote for their best interests. For months, the Bloc is contributing to the Conservative tactics of blocking Parliament to stop bills that would make Quebec a better place. Instead of trying to squabble, can the Bloc finally go beyond squabbles and actually work for Quebecers to allow this Parliament to function? Quebecers expect better from the Bloc, and we'll always be here on this side of the House to defend Quebecers. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. The Deputy Prime Minister's resignation confirms that the Prime Minister has gone too far in pushing for Liberal measures at all costs. She has confirmed that the Prime Minister is no longer legitimate. He cannot move forward with a full economic update without a finance minister. She confirms that the Prime Minister cannot continue to govern without a new plebiscite from the people. The Deputy Prime Minister has confirmed all of this. Will the Prime Minister finally trigger an election? The Honourable Minister for Labour. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois simply rejects economic updates without having read it. That's why they voted against the Canada childcare benefit. That's why they voted against our dental plan for Canadians. And many Quebecers are benefiting from these programs. They voted against the guaranteed income supplement. They systematically vote against all assistance for Quebecers. So we shouldn't be surprised that the Bloc, once again, is rejecting our measures that will help Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Regina-Capel.
Carbon Tax Carney is the Prime Minister's official economic advisor, and his plan was always to push out the Finance Minister and take her place. Let's look at his advice so far. He forced her to bring in the GST tax trick. Carney also forced through insane inflationary spending, smashing through that $40 billion guardrail. Carney's economic plan is so bad, the Finance Minister resigned in protest rather than humiliate herself into reading his homework. Now nobody knows who the Finance Minister is. Mr. Speaker, enough is enough. Why won't the Prime Minister do the only honourable thing left and let Canadians decide for themselves in a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Another day, another attack against Canadians from the Conservative Party of Canada. Anytime someone steps up who disagrees with their vision for Canada, what do? Personal attacks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve better than the slogans and personal attacks that we get from Conservative members of Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina-Capel.
the attacks on this government's economic record are coming from inside the Liberals' own cabinet, Mr. Speaker. And it looks more and more like Carbon Tax Carney's plan to push out the Prime Minister is working as well, too. For Carbon Tax Carney, it's always been profits over people. Look at his record. Since he became the top economic advisor to the PM, he's moved his own company's headquarters to New York City. He got caught unethically lobbying the UK government. And his firm Brookfield is now looking for $10 billion in taxpayers' money for a new investment fund, which would be managed by Brookfield, his own company. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve better than this government in shambles. Why not call a carbon tax election and let Canadians decide for themselves?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is the People's House, and in it we should be debating things that are pertinent to the administration of government. But what we hear from the House Leader from the Conservative Party of Canada is attacks on Canadians, Mr. Speaker. The person he is talking about is not a sitting member of Parliament, is not a cabinet minister. It is someone that they are attacking simply because they do not share their vision of Canada. Mr. Speaker, every single Canadian deserves better than what we hear from the opposition today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
The Prime Minister's lost control. Hours before delivering a fiscal update, the Finance Minister resigned, joining 1/5 of the Liberal caucus and saying she doesn't have confidence in the Prime Minister either. And there's only one person left keeping this Prime Minister in power, and that's the Leader of the NDP. The fall budget is scheduled to be tabled in 54 minutes, and we don't even know who the Finance Minister is. The Liberals' own cabinet order on succession states if it's not her, it's the Industry Minister, but he says he doesn't want to. So that means it's supposed to go to the disgraced member from Edmonton Centre. The question is, will the other Randy be Canada's next Finance Minister? And how much is he investing in fraud?
Again, I've asked members to please not do indirectly what they can't do directly by referring to a member by their first name. The Honourable Leader, order. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, all we see from Conservative members of Parliament is personal attacks and mudslinging against Canadians. Mr. Speaker, what we all need to be doing right now is standing united for our country, making sure that we are protecting the Canadian economy, Canadian jobs, and making things a little bit easier for Canadians. We look forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Speaker, our government takes the safety of children seriously. That's why we put forward a comprehensive plan to bring Canada into the 21st century and change our online world, making it safer for kids and better for all. The Conservatives are blocking the plan and they're standing in the way of a better future for our kids online. Parents want the Online Harms Act. Experts want the Online Harms Act. Can the Minister of Justice explain why C-63 must be passed to keep our kids safe?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, last week I asked for unanimous consent to split the Online Harms Act and advance the child protection measures as soon as possible. Every single party got on board except for the Conservatives. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party said no to forcing the removal of child sexual abuse material from the internet. They said no to Amanda Todd's mother, Carol. They said no to Rehtaeh Parsons' mother and all the other parents who are begging us to act. While Conservative inaction keeps child sexual abuse material online, on this side of the House, the government will continue to fight for victims, parents and kids to keep them safe.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. The Prime Minister has completely lost the plot. He's lost control of immigration, of our borders, of public finances. He's also lost the confidence of 20 or 40 members of his caucus. He's lost the confidence and trust of his right-hand woman, the former Minister of Finance. The Prime Minister has lost everything. Will he finally let go and trigger an election so that Canadians can take back control of their future. The Honourable Minister for Innovation, rather. Mr. Speaker, I am not a new minister of anything, not immigration or anything else. We have no lessons to learn from the Conservatives. Today, what the government will table is an economic update that will be here to invest in Canadians, invest in industry, invest in our workers. But, Mr. Speaker, what we've seen today during question period is deplorable. Canadians who are watching us today expect better from the official opposition. Now is the time to work together, to defend our country, to be ready for the next US administration. It's disappointing to see that the opposition is playing political games on a day like today. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I can't quite believe what I just heard from the Minister for well, not the Minister for Finance, he said no, but the Minister for Innovation. The Minister is out of control. His former right-hand woman was very striking in her letter. We have to preserve our fiscal capacity against the United States that's pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism. We need to recognize the gravity of the moment. The situation is dire. Canadians need to work. So what do we need? The Honourable Minister for Labour and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, it's not by shouting slogans that this member will claim to create unity in our country. Our government has a serious plan to move forward. We will, through our full economic statement, provide for prosperity for all Canadians, and we will be here to protect Canadians against any potential threat.
The Honourable Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
The Prime Minister is spiraling so bad, and his obsession for power is dangerous. It's actually dangerous, and it is killing people every day. In Peterborough, and the Peterborough and area families are suffering the greatest rates of food insecurity ever recorded. Do you know what food insecurity means, Mr. Speaker? Starvation, hunger, children. Enough. This is as serious as it gets. The finance minister quit hours before she was supposed to do this, and she doesn't have confidence in this prime minister. No one does. This man is a disgrace, and we need an election now.
I ask member, please, to be very judicious in referring to any member in this place. Order. Order. The Honourable Minister for Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we've made investments to ensure that Canadians, including those in Peterborough-Kawartha, have the support that they need, whether that be through affordable childcare, whether that be through an HST holiday, Mr. Speaker. The people of Peterborough-Kawartha can rely on us, can know that we on this side of the House will fight for them when their Member of Parliament will do everything they can to oppose these supports.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, children in Canada are just not safe online. Our government wants to join the many countries that have now adopted online safety regulations. Yet the Conservatives are preventing our Online Harms Act from moving forward. In fact, shockingly, they're blocking our efforts to remove child sex abuse material from the internet. How disgusting. Can the Justice Minister please describe the importance of Bill C-63 to parents and children and explain why Canadians so urgently need this law now?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, the Online Harms Bill is the product of 4 years of consultation. It is comprehensive legislation that will remove child sex abuse material from the internet. By blocking that very act, the Conservatives have made a clear choice that they will not prioritize the safety of our kids. They don't stand with parents. Amanda Todd's mother, Carol, said she's been waiting 12 years for this type of change. We need to pass this legislation to do right by Carol and every other parent of every other child who suffered abuse online. The question for Canadians and for that party is, will they stand with us and keep kids safe? Yes.
The honourable member for North Island Powell River.
The Marriage After 60 pension clause is dated, sexist, and unfair. All parties agree it should be eliminated. But the Liberals have sat on their hands and let veterans and their spouses down. The Liberals' former deputy leader said it best: Canadians can tell when the government is focused on themselves and not on real people. And failing to remove this clause proves it. When will the Liberals stop labeling women gold diggers and get rid of this archaic, sexist clause?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Veterans Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question and also to take a moment to thank the members of the Canadian Armed Forces for their service. Mr. Speaker, when a person serves in the military, we all recognize that their family serves with them. Our government is sensitive to the situation of widowed spouses who have married veterans after the age of 60, and our government is committed to improving and supporting members of their family as we move forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my last question in 2024, I think of the IPCC report. I'm sorry.
Yes, I mean, colleagues, really. I'd like to just hear the Honourable Member. She's at the far end of the room. It's difficult for me to hear, and I would like her to please start again. The Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my last question in 2024, I think of the IPCC sixth assessment report that if we do not globally reduce emissions dramatically, peak before and see dramatic reductions at the latest, this is a quote, at the latest before 2025, we will shoot way past the Paris Agreement targets, way past 2 degrees Celsius, and face climate disaster. I think of the words in that film, The Age of Stupid. What were we thinking to avoid the opportunity to save ourselves when we had the chance? Can the Honourable Minister give us any excuse, but perhaps this question period answers its own question?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable colleague for her question. I would like to remind her that everything we've done since we've been in power in 2015 has meant a 43% decline in emissions in Canada, Mr. Speaker. Greenhouse gas emissions are at their lowest level in 25 years, 27 years, in fact, Mr. Speaker. Our plan is working. We're helping the economy, we're creating jobs, and we're fighting pollution.
Oral questions. Question orale. The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
The Liberal Prime Minister has lost control of spending, and he's lost control of his own cabinet. The outgoing Finance Minister promised that a massive $40 billion deficit would be her fiscal guardrail, but it looks like the Prime Minister and the incoming Finance Minister, Carbon Tax Carney, are pushing her through the guardrail and over the fiscal cliff with the rest of Canadians. So will the Prime Minister stand up today and admit that he's having his outgoing Finance Minister take the fall so that he can replace her with Carbon Tax Carney?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
They are trying to distract from their voting record, Mr. Speaker. In this House of Commons, when this government put forward legislation, affirmed last night by the Senate, in fact, to cut GST for families looking to buy kids' clothes, diapers, car seats, families that want to go out to a restaurant, someone who wants to buy beer or cider. They're against that, Mr. Speaker. Shameful. Lots of slogans when it comes to cutting taxes, but that's all they have, Mr. Speaker. Empty slogans. When it comes down to it, we put a tax cut forward, and they voted against it.
Right on. The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
a tiny 2-month tax trick is not going to help the more than 2 million Canadians lined up at food banks every month, or pennies off of Pepsi for Canadians who are going to pay $800 more for groceries in 2025. So this Prime Minister is forcing his outgoing finance minister to take the fall for the effects of his inflationary spending that's pushing his $40 billion deficit guardrail right to past and over the cliff. So will the Prime Minister admit that it is in fact his inflationary spending that's the cause of this massive deficit?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing.
The lowest debt and deficit in the G7, Mr. Speaker. A 5th consecutive interest rate decline. What is that? That is good news, Mr. Speaker, for business owners looking to expand. It's good news for mortgage holders looking to renew, families looking to buy a home, Mr. Speaker, and there's many other examples. They want to distract from their record. In fact, think about the Harper years. The worst rate of economic growth had Stephen Harper going back to R.B. Bennett in the 1930s, Mr. Speaker. They're not serious about these things.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Good news. He's talking about good news like Canadians have never had it so good. The highest household debt because Canadians can't afford to pay their mortgages. They can't afford to feed themselves. They can't afford to heat their homes or put gas in their cars after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister who said that the budget would balance itself, that he doesn't think about monetary policy, and it should be the bankers that worry about the economy. Even his caucus is calling for some fiscal sanity after 9 years of his economic vandalism. When the deficit smashes through $40 billion, will at least he allow his caucus to have a free fall?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
He talks about people at food banks, Mr. Speaker. We're not insensitive to that. Canadians have had a hard time. What has this government done? We've supported them through the pandemic. We continue to show support, Mr. Speaker. They want to cut their pensions. They want to cut employment insurance. We have a school food program, in fact, that is supporting no less than 400,000 kids in 4 different provinces. They voted against that too, Mr. Speaker. The Canada Child Benefit, today parents will see a direct deposit put into their account. Guess what? They're also against that, Mr. Speaker. They don't care.
Yes.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Deficit. That's a very short 3-syllable word. It's easy to pronounce, and yet not only are the Liberals incapable of saying it, they won't even talk about it because they've lost control, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Finance said that she had put in place a guardrail so that the deficit would not go beyond $40 billion. So why is the Prime Minister being advised by Mark Carney? Why is he choosing to force her to blow through her $40 billion guardrail and break her promise? The Honourable Member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, Canadians and Quebecers will have a GST holiday. That is great news. And what did the Conservatives say? They said that they had to cut taxes, but they sat down. And tomorrow morning, we took action. We are going to give a GST holiday to Canadians on diapers, on restaurants. Mr. Speaker, Canadians will be able to save money because of us. The Conservatives don't get it. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. I didn't hear him mention the word deficit, Mr. Speaker. I said deficit. It's not hard to understand. Why did the Prime Minister force the first female Minister of Finance to blow through her guardrail, taking with her all Canadians over the fiscal cliff, while he and his friend Carbon Tax Carney watched them fall? That is such hypocrisy from a Prime Minister who said this week, well, I want you to know that I am and always will be a feminist. I'm going to try again. Does the Prime Minister have the courage to say the word deficit? And why did he force his Minister of Finance to break her promise? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I saw the Conservatives' economic statement, and it's blank. They have nothing to say about the economy. Early tomorrow morning, we're going to give a GST holiday to Canadians, and that's good news. They could have stood up and supported us on that. And what did they do? They stayed seated. So they are going to have to tell their constituents why they didn't support this holiday. And that is shameful, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Once again yesterday, the senators delayed a crucial vote on C-282 on supply management. They have been engaging in shenanigans for the past 18 months instead of adopting this one-section bill. Instead of respecting the will of all parties, the unelected senators are obstructing and filibustering. And, irony of ironies, they took 4 hours of paid breaks yesterday. Will the government denounce this sad spectacle? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I completely agree with the member across the way. It is shameful what the Conservatives are doing in this House because some 50% of them voted against Bill C-282, and on this side of the House, we have supported that bill, and so I encourage all members to work on this to get the bill to pass. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. I am calling on all party leaders. Every single one of them voted to protect supply management in trade agreements. So today, they now have the responsibility to call on senators to respect the will of elected officials. They have to tell the unelected senators that they're not paid to take breaks, that they have work to do, even though it is very superfluous. The Lords of the Senate will be sitting again next week. Will all the leaders, especially the Prime Minister, call on them to pass Bill C-282 before the holidays?
The Secretary Parlementaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the past few months, I have heard the Prime Minister say on a number of occasions he was encouraging the other place to adopt C-282, but I didn't hear the same thing from the leader of the Conservative Party. I know it's rough on that side of the House. Half of them voted against supply management, but everyone on this side of the House voted in favour, and we expect that the other place respect the wishes of the House of Commons.
For New Westminster, Burnaby.
The Parliamentary Budgetary Officer revealed yesterday that over 2 million Canadians don't have access to adequate or affordable housing. No surprise. Average rents now in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia for a one-bedroom are over $2,500 a month. Staggering. The Liberals have simply been too weak to take on the corporate greed that is fueling housing prices. And Conservatives, of course, they will just make their corporate landlord buddies and developer buddies richer. But when will this government take on the corporate greed that is fueling housing prices, and so that all Canadians can have a roof over their head?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing.
In fact, what the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report revealed, Mr. Speaker, is that this federal government, for the first time in decades, is back in housing, making it a serious priority, reversing decades of cuts of previous governments in particular, and with all due respect to Conservative governments. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that we have more work to do, but we've seen through vital programs that would be cut by that party, like the Reaching Home program, 87,000 people lifted off the street, and almost 150,000 people who are going to be homeless, not homeless because of our strategy on that. We'll continue.
Right on. The Honourable Member for Timmins James Bay.
Temperatures are plunging in northern Canada, and the ongoing housing crisis on northern reserves is putting families and children at serious risk. Carol Ann Ballantyne lives in a moldy trailer with 3 children in Pelican Narrows, Saskatchewan, and for years she's pleaded just for a simple home to keep her children safe and warm. But to the Liberals, she's just another name on an ever-growing backlog of heartbreak and homelessness in the North, a crisis they continue to ignore. So, simple question, why is this government refusing to help this family? Why are they refusing to step up and deal with this crisis?
The Honourable Minister, Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've been working since 2015 on creating partnerships with provinces, with territories, with Indigenous leaders to get more houses built all over the North, Mr. Speaker. Several years ago, we invested $4 billion in distinctions-based housing to get construction done. Last year, there was another $4 billion for an urban, rural, northern housing reserve. We're going in the right direction, and there's still lots of work to do.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Carbon tax Carney's Canadian comeback fueled a fiscal feud for this furious finance minister. The Prime Minister forced the finance minister to crash through the $40 billion deficit guardrail promise. The PBO says it'll be at least over $6 billion. Now that the Prime Minister is done using her, he'll dump her for carbon tax Carney. Will the Prime Minister confirm once he fires his finance minister, the deficit won't be a penny over $46 billion?
Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While that member practices on things that rhyme with F words, our minister actually renegotiated NAFTA with Trump. Our minister introduced supports during a global pandemic to keep businesses and people going. Our minister tomorrow will see a GST tax breaks for Canadians. So while Conservatives practice their rhymes, we're delivering real supports for Canadians.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Their minister is the reason why Canada's economy is crapping out. And just to take dimes off of Doritos, they'll crash the deficit guardrail, taking Canada's finances off a cliff. The Prime Minister forced the Finance Minister to implement it. The PBO confirmed that they're already $6 billion past that fiscal guardrail. Canadians want to know how bad carbon tax Carney and the Prime Minister will smash through the $40 billion deficit guardrail. How bad is it? What is the deficit number?
Yeah, what is it? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, it's pretty clear that when the Conservatives have no real argument or debate, they just insult people. Because on this side of the House, our finance minister has a record of helping people in some of the hardest times that this country has ever faced. A global pandemic, global inflation. We saw another interest rate cut just this week, and tomorrow we will see more tax breaks for Canadians. Something Conservatives promised they'd do, but weren't able to. So what is it, Mr. Speaker? Is it the fact that it's our plan we're actually implementing, or they can't stand it's a woman doing it?
The honourable member for Northumberland, Peter. Order. Order. We made it into 12 questions before we really got too much noise here. Not bad, not bad. This is a record, I'm sure. This must be a record. The honourable member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Consensus among economists, experts, and even the parliamentary budget officers is that the government has exceeded all of its fiscal anchors. The only question is, how badly have they failed? Can the government confirm whether the Minister of Finance has gone way past the guardrails, or whether they've gone completely off the cliff with a $46 billion deficit?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing.
The members should expand beyond the Fraser Institute, Mr. Speaker, and look to, for example, what the International Monetary Fund has said, what other lead financial authorities have said in the business press and elsewhere, the parliamentary budget officer as well. Canada has a very sustainable fiscal situation, the lowest debt in the G7, the lowest deficit in the G7, a AAA credit rating, Mr. Speaker. And what do we see on the Conservative side? A plan to make cuts, including a plan to cut $10 million for housing in Peterborough, his community, Mr. Speaker. What do you have to say to that?
The honourable member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Well, let's return to the facts here. The current and former Governor of Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklin, and Steve Pelosi agree the Canadian economy is in big trouble. The phantom finance minister's economic plan is failing Canadians. The sad part is these Liberals don't even know how badly. So can someone go behind the curtain on the other side and simply ask Carbon Tax Carney what the deficit is?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, I know this member, he's an honourable member, and I know that he cares about his community. A few weeks ago, I spoke with Peterborough's Mayor Jeff Leal, a good man, someone who cares about his community and is doing a great job in that city. I told him about the government's plan to invest over $10 million through the Housing Accelerator Fund to build more housing. The Conservatives want to cut that investment, among others. Will he join the other Conservative MPs who are advocating for the Accelerator Fund to ensure that more homes get built? I hope that he does, Mr. Speaker. The Mayor is asking.
The honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes Brock.
Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost control of his spending and his cabinet. The PBO says that this year's budget deficit could be as high as $46 billion, smashing the $40 billion guardrail promised by the Finance Minister. And like so many ministers before her, this Finance Minister's time might be limited simply for standing up to the Prime Minister and his radical agenda. Will the Prime Minister confirm that he is ignoring his Prime Minister's $40 billion guardrail promise and tell us if the deficit will exceed $46 billion?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Throughout today, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have launched personal attacks on the Finance Minister, who's responsible for, among other things, the Canada Child Benefit, who's responsible for, among other things, ensuring that childcare is a priority in this country, moving towards $10 a day. What has that done in this country for its economy? Among other things, 110,000 women have been able to re-enter the workforce because childcare has now moved to an affordable level. They want to cancel that, Mr. Speaker. They say all these things about families. In the end, they don't care about families, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Haliburton-Kawartha Lakes Brock.
Speaker, from that answer, it's clear that the Liberals have abandoned all hope of keeping their $40 billion guardrail promise that was made to Canadians. While the unelected, unaccountable and phantom Finance Minister, carbon tax Carney, pulls the strings from the shadows, the Liberals are following their Prime Minister and the economy of Canada right off the fiscal cliff. Already, interest charges on our debt will cost taxpayers more than the Fed send to the provinces in health care. So will the Prime Minister confirm that the deficit will not be over $46 billion?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, you know, there's some really good news. Last night, the Senate of Canada passed the legislation that's going to give a GST tax break starting tomorrow for all Canadians in all regions of the country, Mr. Speaker. That is actually good news. That is something in which the Conservatives campaigned on, but oops, they actually voted against it, Mr. Speaker. They're the Grinch of Christmas, Mr. Speaker, whereas we are giving a tax break during the holiday season. That is good news.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, time is running out for Lion Electric and the federal government must step up. Lion has until December 16th to meet with its lenders. That's Monday. The federal government, December 16th. The federal government must send a clear message to the investors that everything is in place for Lion to resume its activities. It must tell potential buyers that electric school buses that they will receive their 50% subsidy as provided for. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work with the province. We'll continue to work with investors. We will do everything we can because this is an industry that is the future of Canada and Quebec. We absolutely want it to work. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. I would have liked to have heard yes instead, Mr. Speaker. Lion employees deserve better than that from the federal government. There are 3 days left to save this Quebec flagship of green transport. Investors, the cities concerned, the government of Quebec, everyone is fighting to save Lion. But in the meantime, there's just Ottawa that is asleep at the switch. The federal government must facilitate the awarding of the full amounts of the subsidies. That is its role, and it has to do it now, not when there won't be any more of flagship. Will they step up? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, through our zero-emission public transit fund, the government is helping public transit manufacturers to serve Quebecers and Canadians. This is a good way to tell school bus operators that they will be available, and we know that we will continue to work. We want to save these jobs. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
$40 billion was a guardrail set by this Liberal finance minister. Listen to this. Not an unlimited pot. Need to show fiscal restraint. If we have $40 billion guardrail, stay in there. Mr. Speaker, that's not Stephen Harper. That's Liberal members of Parliament. If the deficit is over the $40 billion guardrail, will the Prime Minister allow free vote for his NDP Liberals?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Communities.
The members opposite are very fond of quoting from the Parliamentary Budget Officer, Mr. Speaker, as is their right. Well, they can go one step further and actually look what he recently said on the country's finances. We have a more than sustainable fiscal situation. But if it was up to the Conservatives, that would reverse. We know what the Conservative record is when it comes to running up deficits. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, to the point that's been raised, because they talk about families, what programs would they cut? They talk about this idea of fixing the budget. For them, that means cutting. And they would cut dental care, they would cut pharmacare, they would cut support for families across the board, and pensions, Mr. Speaker. They're not serious.
That's right. The Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, we're talking about what could be more than $40 billion. A carbon-taxing, coal-loving Carney, a finance minister on the run, a prime minister not into monetary policy. They hike taxes, they fuel inflation, they crash through the fiscal guardrails and off the cliff. This government is a chaotic clown show. Which one of them will call a carbon tax election?
Just to make sure everybody's, just watch the words that they use. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, we see the Conservatives dive into insults because they actually have no plan for the economy. And I think they just can't stand the fact that we have a finance minister who was able to renegotiate NAFTA with the previous Trump administration. We were able to see supports being delivered to businesses and Canadians through the worst global pandemic. And, Mr. Speaker, we continue to see interest rates drop. And tomorrow we see a tax break for all Canadians. So while they want to know about a free vote, I'm wondering if they'll have a free question.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost control of his finances and of his cabinet. This spat is about the astronomical deficit because the Prime Minister is forcing his Finance Minister to increase the deficit by $6 billion for electioneering purposes. He forced her to not keep her promise, to not blow through her $40 billion deficit. Will the Prime Minister confirm that the deficit will not be beyond $56 billion? Thank you. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in my riding, it is the distribution of Christmas baskets, and I'd like to thank all the volunteers and Solange, the General Director, for their excellent work. When I meet with them, they always remind me how important it is for families who receive the Canada Child Benefit, and that is an excellent, it's some $7,000 per person, and we are so thankful for our Minister of Finance to have put that in place. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the facts. 9 years of Liberal government, 9 consecutive deficits. The result, the debt of Canada has more than doubled. Even the Minister of Finance is starting to quarrel with the Prime Minister because of his irresponsibility. Mr. Speaker, to solve this spat, the Prime Minister is preparing to crown the very radical Mark Carney. He's been pulling the strings for far too long. So, is this Minister of Finance on her last legs? And will she replaced by Mark Carney, who is unelected?
Secretary.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank all the volunteers in my riding who are helping those who are in need, including and we have to say that, our Deputy Prime Minister has given us a GST tax break that the Conservatives voted against. I would urge my colleagues across the way to meet with their constituents and tell them that they voted against this tax relief measure for those people who are in need. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, postal workers have been left without a fair deal for too long. They deserve safe working conditions, to retire with dignity and livable wages. Now small businesses and everyday people are being hit hard, all because the Liberals refuse to do right by workers. And the Conservatives, well, they don't care about workers. They protect CEOs like Canada Post's Doug Ettinger, padding his pockets while workers and communities struggle. Why is the minister refusing to protect postal workers' rights to a fair deal?
Here, here. Honourable Minister of Labour.
Of course, Mr. Speaker, we did respect and do respect workers' rights to negotiate a collective agreement. That's why the government has proposed, and I have proposed, a way forward where we can avoid these postal workers being on picket lines for an untold and unknown amount of time, take a pause, have an independent, respected arbitrator look at the situation, propose a way forward, and indeed ensure the sustainability for Canada Post. We will always be there for postal workers and other workers, Mr. Speaker, and we need to make sure that Canadians are well served in the process.
The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, Port Alberni is short 1,200 homes. It's nearly impossible to find an affordable place to live. Rents doubled under the Conservatives and then again under the Liberals. Liberals' disappointment and Conservative cuts mean that non-market housing in Canada has dropped to 3.5% of our housing stock. Other countries are doing much better, like France at 17%, Netherlands 34%, and Denmark at 21%. Safe, secure, and affordable housing saves lives. When will the Liberal-Conservative coalition stop caving to rich investors and rapidly start building up Canada's non-market housing supply?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing.
The member is right to talk about non-market housing. We do need more non-market housing options in this country, Mr. Speaker. And what have we seen over the past few years? An enormous increase in exactly that. 87,000 people who were on the street are now living in non-market housing, Mr. Speaker. Close to 150,000 people who are going to be homeless have been housed as a result of the investments that this government has made. We agree with the NDP that we need to do more, of course, but Mr. Speaker, where we part company with the NDP is on the issue of market-based housing. We want to see more rental apartments for middle-income and lower-income Canadians. The NDP doesn't have a plan on that.
That's right. The honourable member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, our government announced new measures to put more money back in the pockets of Canadians to help them afford the things they need and save for the things they want. Unfortunately, some on the other side of the House are spreading misinformation about our tax cut, like the Member of Parliament for Central Okanagan, Similkameen and Nicola, who described it as sending people pennies. Could the minister please educate the member opposite on what a tax break means for Canadians this holiday season?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, let me commend the member who comes from a proud family that built up a successful small business. She understands what this tax cut means for small business owners, but also for Canadians who want to see a savings, especially during the holidays, one that begins this Saturday and extends into February. What do we see with the Conservatives? Sloganeering. Their leader isn't too worried. He has a $2 million pension, Mr. Speaker. He's not worried at all. Conservatives talk about tax cuts. When it comes down to it, they're not in favor of that. They don't care.
That's right. The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
The Finance Minister admitted that deficits cause inflation. She promised that she would cap Canada's deficit at an already crazy $40 billion and wouldn't go a penny over. Now the Prime Minister is pressuring her to spend even more by pushing through her own guardrail and making her fall off a fiscal cliff. Is the Prime Minister going to pressure this female finance minister to read conflict of interest carbon tax Carney's fiscal update and blame her for breaking the $40 billion deficit promise?
Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I repeat, the lowest debt and deficit in the G7. The PBO coming out and affirming that we have a very fiscally sustainable situation. What would the Conservatives do? They would make cuts. And in fact, the member, with all due respect to her, ought to go and listen to what the mayor of Kelowna recently said. The Conservatives are proposing cuts for housing. That would mean less money for Kelowna. In fact, he's worried that because of those prospective cuts, that Kelowna would have to increase property taxes and go into the reserves. The Conservative plan is a plan to increase property taxes, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we've seen the fake feminist Prime Minister do this before, pushing strong women out of cabinet. Yet the Prime Minister's hypocrisy is on display as he lectures about him being a proud feminist. The Globe and Mail reported on the Prime Minister's aggressive recruitment of conflict of interest carbon tax Carney as tensions increase with the current finance minister. So will the fake feminist Prime Minister park the hypocrisy and admit his inflationary spending is forcing the finance minister to break her $40 billion deficit promise?
Good job.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we hear the word feminist being thrown around this place in the most disrespectful way, and it is rich that the Conservative Party claims to care about women. Maybe they should stand up to their own leader who contributes to the misogyny that increases hate towards women by embedding misogynistic hashtags into his YouTube videos. We won't take any lessons from the party across.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
The finance minister actually admits deficits cause inflation. She promised a cap of an already wacko $40 billion, but the prime minister bullied to crash her through that so-called guardrail with billions more. He sets her up to take the fall, and Canadians will pay the price. Now, like a long line of women, the prime minister kicks her to the curb for his conflict of interest carbon tax crony Carney. Is the prime minister really going to bully his female finance minister to read carbon tax Carney's fiscal update and then blame her for breaking the $40 billion deficit promise?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this is a minister who stood up to Putin, who renegotiated trade deals with the U.S., who worked and helped Canadians get through a global health pandemic. Mr. Speaker, she doesn't get bullied, but it seems that perhaps the Conservative caucus is projecting the fact that if they don't read the Conservative leaders' lines, if they don't rhyme enough, they don't get question time. So while we are working and focused on providing tax relief to Canadians, Conservatives are making sure they rack up those gold stars.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Look, we all know the Prime Minister says women experience him differently, but it's his pattern to elbow them to the side, and it's sad to see a woman spinning for him. He's incompetent, unaccountable, and bullies subordinate women, blames and shames them, then replaces them with his buddies. He's aggressively recruited carbon tax Carney, yet calls himself a proud feminist. Canadians can't afford this. Will this complete weak fake stop all the hypocrisy and admit his inflationary spending forces the finance minister to break her $40 billion deficit promise?
The Honourable Minister.
If the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, want to talk about feminism, here's some policies that our government has done to support women across this country. Policies like $10 a day childcare that has thousands of women back in the workforce because they can now do so. The National Action Plan to end gender-based violence that is helping women get true freedom from those that would hurt them and harm them. True freedom, autonomy over our bodies, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives have opposed every single measure we have put forward to help women in this country, and they continue to do so.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, I would like to start by expressing my solidarity to the workers at Canada Post. I hope that an agreement will be quickly negotiated, but this proves that we very much need a 10-day passport collection service in Abitibi-Témiscamingue in northern Quebec and on the north coast. In urgent situations, people in my area have only one option within Quebec, which is to drive for 6 hours or more in the dead of winter to Gatineau or Montreal. But at the Service Canada office in Rwanda, they have all the equipment that they need to offer the service, and they've had it since September 2023. It's almost the holidays. Will the minister finally show some good faith and offer the service in Rwanda?
Secretary Parlementaire.
Merci, Monsieur. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I'd like to thank my colleague across the way for wanting to improve Service Canada. Service Canada is currently working with IRCC in order to explore all possible ways to expand those current services. When they determine a location, it's based on various criteria, like access, the demand, and demographic factors. We're always seeking to improve things, and only on Tuesday, we have a meeting on that subject with the minister, the Honourable Member. Well, the minister dared to formally respond to me that 96% of Canadians are able to access the 10-day passport service within a half hour of their homes, but in my area, people need to drive more than 6 hours, 2 or 3 days, plus fees. In the dead of winter, people are having to drive for hours over very long distances. It's ridiculous. We have heard that the equipment has been there for 15 months. We just need to train the staff. When will the Liberals stop keeping our citizens waiting like this? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we know that more than 98% of people are able to access these services, but in his writing, 92% of passports are deliverable within 20 days in his writing. Now, I would also invite people to also plan for their trips and to ask for their passports more than 20 days in advance in order to be able to meet their needs. And we're continuing to work with Service Canada, IRCC, and service centres to improve service.
Bull River.
Thank you. Things are getting real bad behind closed doors for the languishing Liberal government. The Prime Minister is once again looking for someone to take the fall for his fiscal fiasco. This time, the Minister of Finance has been targeted for removal, so Carbon Tax Carney can come out from behind the shadows and replace her. Their $40 billion so-called deficit guardrail looks like it's about to be smashed through, sending our economy off the cliff. Will the Prime Minister keep his promise, confirm the deficit will not be over $40 billion?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
More personal attacks today, Mr. Speaker. Under this Minister of Health and under this Minister of Finance, we've seen a national dental care program put in place. 3 million plus Canadians have signed on. Over 1 million have received care, Mr. Speaker. Many are seniors. In fact, seniors were the first to be offered care. Are the Conservatives saying that as part of this big, bold idea, more of a slogan, Mr. Speaker, in fact, to fix the budget, they'd get rid of dental care? Yep. That's exactly what they would do, Mr. Speaker. When it comes down to it, as I've said throughout today, they do not care. They care about slogans, but they don't care about Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Bull River.
The Prime Minister lost control of his caucus, just like he lost control of our economy. And their benches are clearing of people left to blame. But it's not stopping the Liberal government from smashing through their own stated deficit guardrail, their fiscal anchor. Whatever they want to call it, the guardrail is about to be smashed. Canada's economy is careening off the cliff and sinking fast. So will the Prime Minister please just stop drowning us in debt, confirm the next week's deficit, and won't shoot over $40 billion and capsize Canada?
There. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Export Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, children's clothes, diapers, car seats, board games, prepared food, snacks, video games, children's toys will all cost 13% less tomorrow in Ontario, thanks to our GST tax break that our Liberal government brought forward, Mr. Speaker. While the Conservatives sat down and voted no against this tax savings for Canadian families, we understand that this time of year is hard on families. We want to continue to be there to support them. If you're planning on taking your family out for dinner, that's 13% less in Ontario. That's what we'll continue to do. We'll continue supporting families in Ontario. So starting tomorrow, there'll be a GST tax break for all families across Canada.
The Honourable Member for Kenora.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost control of spending and even his own cabinet. He is pushing his Finance Minister to smash through her $40 billion deficit guardrail. All the while, reports indicate he is planning to fire her and replace her with Carbon Tax Carney. Now, Mr. Speaker, $40 billion would already be a massively irresponsible deficit, but the PBO says it could even go as high as $46 billion. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister confirm today that the deficit will not be a penny over $46 billion?
Great question. The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, I think we sit in this place and we hear Conservatives ask the same question written by their leader over and over and over again. That question has been asked and answered dozens of times in this House. So I have a question for my Conservative friends back. They seem very concerned about deficits. Can they offer one thing? One. Where are they going to start cutting, Mr. Speaker? Be specific.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, in 2022, 1 in 4 Canadians skipped a visit to the dentist because of cost. But thanks to our government's Canadian Dental Care Plan, over 1.2 million Canadians have now received oral health care. Applications for the Canadian Dental Care Plan launched 1 year ago, and today, more than 3 million Canadians now have dental coverage, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister of Health share how the CDCP is making life more affordable and helping Canadians access essential dental care?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, I thank the member for his question. He's been such an advocate and a proponent of making sure everybody gets oral health. And could you imagine just a year ago when we started taking applications on the Canada Dental Care Plan, that in that year now 3 million Canadians are covered. It means virtually every senior who is eligible is covered and is able to get care. That is not just a matter of social justice, of somebody having a smile they're proud of or finally being able to get a pair of dentures in their mouth. It is also a matter of prevention. When we make sure that people get care, they don't get sick, we save money and we have a healthier society.
The Honourable Member for Caribou Prince George.
They launched dental care just about the same time that they take the GST off chips, cookies, and candies. Bravo. Liberal backbenchers have supported this Prime Minister through every scandal and every failed policy. Their deficit must be pretty bad if they're finally willing to remove the gag and start speaking out. Will the Prime Minister at least listen to his own MPs and allow a free vote?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, let's talk about health. Let's talk about what they're going to cut. They would take away diabetes medications for patients. They would take away contraception for women. They would take away oral health care for seniors. And what's going to happen? Let's talk about the implications. Canada has the second longest health span in the G7, longer than Italy, longer than France, longer than the United Kingdom, 6 years longer than the United States. What they would do with these cuts is drive illness, which will drive cost, and is just plain dumb. If you want to make sure that we get health right, it also is at the core of a strong economy. It's at the core of reducing costs. It's time they woke up and stood up for health care in this country.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
The fundamental role of Parliament is that no money shall be spent without the consent of Parliament. It's right in the Constitution. You might want to take a look. It's been 8 months since the year end, and the Liberals still haven't tabled the deficit number. The Liberals are 2 months late in tabling the public accounts. Bay Street, not Parliament, learned yesterday that the government has sold $3 billion of Air Canada shares. They are blocking Parliament from doing its work. They must have blown by their maximum $40 billion deficit promise massively. Come clean. What's the deficit number?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Communities.
The member knows very well, Mr. Speaker, that during the pandemic, this government provided loan support and other support for Air Canada to ensure its long-term viability. Part of that was buying shares in the company. It was never, though, the intention of the Government of Canada to hold on to those shares into the long term. It made a sale yesterday, and it was a responsible one. Again, and the question has been asked. The Minister of Health put it forward. The Minister of Labour put it forward. What would they cut? What would they cut to ensure that the budget, as they say, is fixed? They'd cut dental care, child care, pharmacare supports. They don't care, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Today, the Minister of Labour stepped into the Canada Post strike. The Workers' Union said, and I quote, "It denounces in the strongest terms this assault on our constitutionally protected rights." Even the NDP leader said the Liberals will, and I quote, "always step in to make sure unions have no power." On Monday, the NDP leader put his pension before country and workers and voted confidence in the Liberals. Will the government confirm it has ordered workers back to work? And what is the price Liberals paid to keep NDP leader propping up this anti-worker government?
The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, we acted decisively today to offer a creative solution to the labour dispute between Canada Post and its workers. That constitutionally protected right to strike has been exercised for 4 weeks. If workers were not to be on picket lines for some indefinite period over the holidays, a solution had to be brought. We work for all Canadians in this House. Canadians were suffering. Small businesses were suffering. Indigenous and remote regions were suffering, Mr. Speaker. The government had to act, and that's what I did this morning.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, our government is bringing real tax relief to Canadians. Tomorrow, December the 14th, Canadians can celebrate the holidays without having to worry about the extra cost of the GST. This is a big help for Canadians across the country who will be able to keep more of their hard-earned money. However, Conservative MPs voted against this tax cut. Could the minister explain to my constituents how this measure can alleviate their tax anxieties during the holiday season?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Kitchener South Hespeler for that question and for her dedicated service. Our government believes that when Canadians need a helping hand, the government must be there. And that's why starting tomorrow, we are giving Canadians a tax break, putting more money in their pockets. This means that essentials like groceries, snacks, kids' clothing, diapers, all tax-free. It means Canadians can focus on this very special time of year on the holidays, spending time with family and friends, and worry less about family budgets. This holiday season is not a time to play politics, it's a time to deliver for Canadians.
The honourable member for Elmwood Transcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals' short-term GST holiday is creating too much confusion for small businesses across this country. This botched plan is adding more stress on local store owners at the busiest time of year as they scramble to reprice their inventory only to swap back in February. Thankfully, New Democrats have a plan to make things simple. Let's make the GST cut permanent on life's essentials so Canadians can have more money and businesses know what to expect. My question is, will this government make life easier for everyone?
Hear, hear.
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, good news. Our government is delivering Canadians a GST tax break starting tomorrow, December 14th, and this is going to really benefit retailers as well as consumers. Let's listen to what the Retail Council of Canada said. This break will create major tax savings for Canadians along with economic stimulus for our industry. Restaurant Canada called this a big win for the restaurant industry and predicts that our tax break will boost sales by 5%, bringing restaurants $1 billion of additional revenue. This tax break will bring more people into the doors of these small businesses. We're grateful to be providing this break for Canadians.
The honourable member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, today the Canada Post strike is a month old and there's no end in sight. This essential service to small businesses is absent during critical sales period needed for their survival. Two obstinate groups hold Canada hostage while the Liberals, desperate to cling to power, are afraid to lose NDP support by ending the strike. Both should know that there are no workers to unionize or taxpayers to tax without employers. And this government's failure to act is harming Canada's top employers and our economy. Mr. Speaker, will the government do its job, put Canada first, stop hiding behind the CIRB, and end this strike?
The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors.
Well, the job of the Minister of Labour is to respect the Canada Labour Code. That is exactly what we've done, and today I acted decisively to use one of the powers granted to the Minister of Labour by this Parliament under the Canada Labour Code to provide a reasonable solution to workers and a creative way out of this very fundamental impasse that we see at the bargaining table. We're going to return Canada Post services to Canadians and to those who've been suffering over this conflict, and hopefully arrive at a negotiated collective agreement by the spring, Mr. Speaker.
And that's all the time we have for question period today. There we go.